his computer died, so we had to come back after a restart there. So hopefully we are back into game, or we will be into game in just a short few moments, as the teams have paused the game for us so that we won't miss a beat. So as we resume what we were talking about before, it's all about easier execution, and it seems the onus is on Resolve Academy to actually survive the early game, and then maybe they can do something with the comp that they've drafted.
This is literally all on how well Mythos play team fights, because we've seen their team fights last game, and simply put, they weren't good. The team fights just weren't good enough. So this time round, they have a much more better team fighting composition. If they can execute the team fight, they should just beat Resolve to standard. So still going to need anti-healing this game because there's still a Lulu. And it's still going to be annoying for them in that regard. So still going to need that in tow. And if they can just front the back clean enough, they should be able to come out with a win. But from game one, that's on such a tilted table that it's kind of scary.
But they're coming into game two. They've shaken off all of the nerves, all of the jitters. They've shaken off the int. Hopefully they've gotten the int out of their system. And they have a better team composition this time around, so they can play that front-to-back team fight. They can get onto the Lulu, onto the Bard, and in certain circumstances can get onto the Xayah as well. Just blow up these squishies, and then maybe be able to take a team fight. It's much more in the realm of possibility than it was in that last game, especially if they do it early. If they do it before the Lulu gets her 2-item power spike of that Moonstone Staff of Flowing Water build that I'm assuming that she's going towards, since you are building a Lulu mid lane, or putting Lulu mid lane. But it's just going to be difficult to get to that situation where you have reached that Lulu item power spike without going 0-6.
Well, Lulu will be able to get the pressure early in this lane, so she will be able to get the early pressure for the jungler, try push them ahead, but this time round they're playing against the Hecarim, not with the Hecarim, so not going to be as easy as it was in game one. Interested to see what summoners they have as well, with a Veigar being in the game as well, so really curious about that. Probably going to be the cleanse. I would hope for the cleanse, otherwise they are going to be the gank target number one. They're just going to repeat gank mid a lot this game if that's the case.
We're just trying to sort our production there to try and get us into games, so just bear with us while we try and get that sorted out. I am expecting a cleanse versus the Vegas, just because that claw is just so obnoxious, and you need to, once you get CC'd by that, you just have the W coming down as well, and then you have the aura just to follow up. So much damage coming through from that Veigar potentially as you get the stacks of that passive. But that's why I'm saying that the Lulu will be difficult to execute, because you will get that shove in the middle lane, you will get the wave state pushed towards the enemy tower, but then that opens up the lane for it to be ganked by the Hecarim. So do you think that the Lulu will need to try and play the wave state so that it's towards her own tower, so that she's less gankable, just to try and get that scaling, get to that Moonstone Staff of Flowing Water?
Well, that's the interesting part, because it all depends on where the Graves plays. And that's going to determine a lot of this, because the Graves might play to shut down the Veigar at the same point, because putting Veigar behind is going to make it that much harder for him to get his stacks. So there is that option as well, trying to bait the 2v2, because the Polymorph is really going to be able to disrupt someone for a fight for a few seconds, which always gets overlooked, how long Lulu Polymorph lands. People always forget how long it is, how annoying it is as well. On top of that, like, Lulu can be so disruptive. Early, she's definitely going to push. She's definitely going to push for early Scuttle Crab. Later in the game, she might pull it back. So, exactly what you said, play more towards her tower so she can make Veigar more of that gank option as well.
Exactly, and you want the Graves to be coming in with that dash and trying to get the damage to get the pick off on the Veigar, try and put him behind so he can't be stacking that passive. And getting to that point where the Veigar is literally just one-tapping all your squishies, since you have 3 squishy members, and maybe you can count Graves as squishy if you're not counting his passive as well. So if he gets to that point where he's starting to one-tap people, especially with his Primordial Burst, then it's just going to be so difficult to play around these team fights, even if you have the Lulu that has that polymorph. Because you can polymorph the jungler, polymorph the Hecarim, for that 2.5 seconds or however long it is. And that will give you some objective control. It's these little tiny little interactions that can be difficult for both these teams to play around.
Also, having multiple AP threats into Graves is quite huge as well. With Graves having quite low MMR, not MMR, MR, sorry. MMR. Don't know why MMR stuck in my head, but low MR. He's definitely more punishable by AP champions, and having a Gragas, having a Viger, it's definitely going to help that term round. So Graves isn't going to have the ideal setup. Obviously, he loves playing into AD champions, getting the armor, making him that much more tankier. So he's definitely going to be the key target for Viger. Oh, if not, it's going to be thrown towards that Xayah if you can get towards him.
Yeah, that's what we're expecting as the game goes on. We do have the spectator delay, so we'll just have to wait that out. I think we're going to go to a quick break here before we get into game, just so... No, we're 1 minute. Okay, I'm being trolled by production. So we'll stick with it, I think, as we do just have the 1 minute. Right. Okay. We'll be 3 minutes into the game when we come in. That's the situation as it is right now. So we're expecting Mythos to win this game. Is that where we've settled on?
Yeah, we're leaning towards Mythos for sure. I feel like just from draft alone, it makes it so easy to execute. I'm really curious about Man Robber's Viger pick. It's an interesting one. This is the second interesting pick they've pulled out, actually, because obviously Kindred game 1 didn't work. Viger game 2, let's see if this one works. Sheeta showed up on the Gragas, especially in the early game. Sort of fell flat a bit later in the game. Wasn't able to make the same impact. Couldn't really burst through shields either because he was tank / AP. So a bit of a mix of a build. Just didn't pay off in the end, unfortunately. And this time around, no fresh. So there's no hook scenario. We kind of have to just play around. Braum getting either his knockup of his Glacial Fissure, or Hecarim Viger finding picks, finding the starter pick for an engage.
And that Braum gives such an easy in as well because of that knockup with the Glacial Fissure and because of the fact that they have the Winter's Bite as well. But we are straight into game 3.5 minutes in. Manrabo already has 69 stacks of that tier. You have that Squiddy skin, my favorite skin for the Lulu, so reppin' Otter in this game. Madison Beer gets kicked in the face by the Hecarim. He throws out the Q as well as they fight over the Skull Crab.
Yeah, both teams fighting for that early pressure. The Goon Squad is here because Bosch is up here as well, so the whole team move towards this top side. Graves gets the edge on the Scuttle. Did also get the bottom Scuttle as well, so Graves is actually going to get double Scuttle here into Hecarim, and that's pretty big.
That's pretty huge. 4 minutes into the game, you have the extra vision coverage, the extra gold and resources of XP being put into Stone Cooker here. Sheeta knows how to play this lane. We saw it in the last game playing into the Gnar, and the Gnar knows it's going to be quite the rough lane, so going to go with the Cull just for the extra amount of gold in my pocket later on. It's kind of an insurance policy more than anything else. He takes a lot of damage underneath his own turret thanks to the casks.
We also have a cleanse on the Xayah, but TP on Lulu. So Lulu's definitely going to be a target in this game. She's definitely going to be one of the ones quite heavily focused for that fact that she doesn't have the cleanse here. So going to need to protect Otter a little bit, but Otter wasn't really caught out of position at all on the Karma. So it's going to be very hard to do so. At the same point, it's still going to be target number 1.
Yeah, pretty decent at positioning, but even to that extent, if you can get a good flank from Dunlosi or it's Sheeta, it can be pretty difficult to play as this Lulu being so squishy as she is. First Drake of the game is an Infernal Drake, so it will mean probably it could be a Mountain Soul, Ocean Soul, or a Cloud Soul. Either any of them will really work out for both these teams, but you would prefer the Cloud one for the side of Mythos with the Hecarim on your team.
Yeah, this bot lane quite passive to start off. Both teams just farming up both 40 CS. Xayah backed for that early call to get that advantage as well, which obviously didn't get seen by the Jinx early enough, so call advantage here, going to be able to come out with more gold. Already has 30 stacks on that as well, so really nice early pickup. They must have backed really early as well, so to pick that up. 2 calls on the board.
Twice. Because earlier on it was Maiku with Doran's Blade and the Cull, and then backed to get the longsword and the dagger. And then Affin just has stayed in the lane for the time being.
Also, I like that Jinx picked up them early boots in that lane as well. I like that they opted towards a little bit more safety, knowing that how much bot lane was focused last game. Both teams threw everything towards bot lane. This is definitely a different dynamic this time around. And also this, I wanted to see Hecarim throw a little bit of attention towards top lane with just Sheeta getting the advantage last time round, just putting a little bit more pressure up there.
Yeah, I'm not going to tower dive Madison Beer Fan at this point. Level 6 reached and Mega Gnar has been popped. You don't want to be tangoing with that Gnar underneath his own tower when he has the Mega Gnar available. And Lulu just playing a little bit of an annoyance game there onto Dunlos. He gets a little bit of chip damage down with the auto attacks in the queue. And he will steal away the Skull Crab towards the top side. Graves invading, steal away his Raptors as he's doing that. Just tags with the rocket onto Maiku there in the bottom lane.
So interesting about Jinx, she does have more range on this current patch. Obviously, it was buffed a few patches ago, so Jinx has been rising in popularity, and even in win rate too. So Jinx has been considerably doing a lot more better than she has been for a while now. So interesting to see that a team's finally trying out this Jinx. Obviously, they must have practiced it in scrims, having the Braum set up as well. Nice little bit of extra peel, obviously helping get off that stun pretty fast with a Jinx as well. So let's throw a lot of attention on this Jinx game. Let's see if they can teamfight well enough with it, because they will be target number one. They did quite well on the Aphelios, considering they didn't play a champion with a dash or any self-peel, so see how they can navigate this Jinx.
Gets it back off to get that Noon Quiver as well with the dagger, building towards the Berserker Greaves. So hitting a little bit of a power spike there, we'll be able to trade a little bit more effectively with Maiku and FGG in the bottom side. But it looks like the lane swap comes out for both these teams, with the Nara and the Gragas rotating towards the bottom side. Stone Cooker manages to pick off the first Rift Herald of the game, so it goes in favor of RSVA at this point. The lane swap will continue to be initiated from both sides.
Yeah, with the Herald being picked up by the Graves, Graves is lurking towards that top side, looking for his option to be able to use it, but doesn't want to force it just yet. With no info on the Hecarim just now, they don't want to make the error.
Yeah, you don't want to make a misstep at this early stage of the game, or any stage of the game if you can help it. You don't want to give any unnecessary advantage over to the enemy players, as you have eked out. Ooh, they just changed the goal just a little bit more, so it's barely any lead now in favor of Resolve Academy here, as you have the Bandal Glass Mirror completed for Otter. So it is building towards that that build that we mentioned during Champion Select, building towards that Staff of Flowing Water and Moonstone build that we expected.
Yeah, expected the full support of Lulu, and that's exactly what we're going to get. Vigar also picked up a tier as well, starting to stack that one up on top of stacking up his passive as well. So Vigar just going perma-stacking build. Not really surprised, really. Vigar just looking for that infinite scaling. Should be able to handle waves quite well into the Lulu anyway, so it's not really too much of an issue.
Yeah, we're going to be keeping an eye on that passive, I think it's called Phenomenal Evil Power or something like that. Wouldn't have too many stacks at this early stage, maybe about 60 or 70 if they're lucky. I have to check in on that in a few minutes. Ishida is towards the bottom side, might be able to get the collapse on him though, as they look at the collapse on the top side as well. Belly Bop over the wall will find Stone Cooker. He throws out a Q as well, but Ishida is quite tanky, opting in for the full tank build this time
Stun
around.
lands.
As the Q does land, Ishida will go down first blood over to the Bard.
The Bard was the main reason that first blood came as well. The stun actually landing before the Gragas dashed, so connects him to that wall, pretty much setting up that kill, just saying he's dead to rights. And Graves finds the option for the Rift Herald. He finds the easiest option here to be the bot lane, which isn't a surprise because the Hecarim is in that top side of the map. Gets them placed over towards the Slayer.
Temper Fate comes through in the middle lane. Manraba will manage to survive though. Bard can't quite do anything just yet. Belly Bop and Sheeta is the main target of
Stun
RSBA here. Another kill, FGG. The bloodthirsty support finds a second.
and quite a bit of damage down onto the Viger, but Shida being targeted this game, and he is going full tank, so he is going a different build this time around.
As a tier of the goddess.
A lot will pick up tier on Gragas, I will say that. They pick it up because of the mana cost being increased on Gragas, helps him a little bit more, and it's cheap, it's efficient, it's really not a bad item. So we got the Bami Cinder, more than likely going to be the full tank.
Do you finish off the tier into a tier item, or do you just kind of have it in inventory until the end of the game?
You have it in inventory, basically. You just keep it as long as you can, more or less, and then just get rid of it when you need to for either pink wards or whatever you need to make room for.
Fair enough. First time I've seen it, actually, and I've casted a decent amount of Gragas games. I mean, I kind of expect it if it's in the jungle, because you usually build full AP, but first time I've seen a top lane Gragas build it in a very, very long time.
Well, it starts off as a meme, actually, because Huni actually built it in LCS, and people were like,
that's Huni, though. That's Huni.
People were like, haha, Huni building tier on Gragas Keck will be... And people were like, wait, it's actually good because Gragas AP costs. And then Gragas AP costs got increased even more, so people were like, okay, like, it's really not a bad item.
Huni's really galaxy brained. He doesn't play like that anymore, but, you know, maybe he's still good. On paper, anyway. But we have the first couple of items being finished off by everyone across the board. We have the More Shield Bow finished by Stonecutter, the Essence Reaver by Maiku, and then on the other side you have the Kraken Slayer and the Turbo Chem Tank finished off by Dunlosi and Effin just respectively. So hitting those IL power spikes can start making plays, especially as the Hecarim, I feel, because of that Turbo Chem Tank.
The thing what's scary right now, though, look at the gold that Resolve is slowly accumulating. They're slowly starting to push their gold lead more and more. They finished the Cull on Xayah, so a big increase of gold there. Obviously got the Herald charge off as well, got them plates. So slowly starting to build up that gold lead even more. Has them 2 kills as well. Both got a tower of peace as well, so not really much issue in that regard, but trying to throw attention towards his mid tower now.
They also have 2 Drakes as well. They sneakily took that secondary Drake, the Cloud Drake, so it is an Ocean Soul for the second game. For the second game in a row, if I'm not mistaken. And with those 2 Drakes already taken, the onus is now on Mythos to try and take these next Drakes to contest any Drake take from Resolve Academy here. And you have that Moonstone just finished off by Otter, so starting to reach those item power spikes across the board.
Also, we got that Kraken Slayer on the Jinx. No Gale Force this time around, which is interesting. That's a lot of faith being put into your team there. It's a lot of faith hoping that they can peel you correctly. But there's still so much CC what can be thrown your way. Even the feathers in a team fight can get a little bit lost and can lose track of them sometimes. So, no Gale Force, no extra dash for Jinx, no extra mobility, so she's still going to be dashless. And still going to be the main target anyway, because it's a Jinx.
Yeah, you gotta shut that Jinx down, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult now with the increased attack range, but should be relatively easy if you can get the Mega Gnar into the backline, or if you can get a nice Tempered Fate and just completely collapse upon the Jinx.
That's what worries me, Doctor. That's generally what worries me.
But here's the engage. Otter gets the knock-up thanks to his ultimate as he gets the Bard Portal to safety. They are onto... Oh, Madison Beer gets the flash away, but gets kicked in the face anyway.
Madison Beer out of position and pretty much just gets exposed for it. Gets taken down, and they're trying to put pressure on the mid tower, but they have no wave, so they don't actually get much off this. They get 1 kill, lose Herald off it though.
They will indeed, and if they can use the buff of the Herald, it might spell a tower in favor of Resolve Academy there for their second tower of the game, potentially. They did already take the one at the bottom side. Relatively low, the tower in the middle lane too, so that's where I'm expecting them to drop this Rift Herald. And it will crack open the game, crack open the map if they do manage to crack open that middle lane.
So I got an interesting stat for you, Doctor, because... So, Resolve's main team, their Herald percentage is really, really high. and they always get double herald in like 90% of their games. Something stupid like that is stupidly high.
Right.
Resolve Academy, 2 games, 2 heralds, both of them. They've taken both heralds, both games, just like their main team would. So you can definitely tell that practice is there, practicing against their main team and learning from them. So it's interesting to see. I like seeing this from Resolve Academy.
I love when Academy teams scrim against the main teams. I love when they learn from them, how they can just get so much better because of being the Academy team for what is such a good UK team. We had Resolve in our league before, and now we might have Resolve Academy. If they win this game, they will promote into the UKEL. In comes the engage from Denosi. It's onto the 80 carry, but he has to try and get out of there. He doesn't have his ultimate available. He doesn't have his ghost, but here comes the knockup. It's onto Stone Cooker, but he's not the target that you were looking for. He has the healing. He has some of the damage. FGG goes try and get out of there. He uses his flash, and the Jinx now, he got excited. One more auto attack, but the Lulu keeps him alive with the shielding. But the Jinx is doing so much work in the team fight. Stone Cooker gonna try and play Gatekeeper, try and support the 3 low health bars of his teammates. It'll be a tough one to try and play out the rest of this team fight, especially as the wave is pushing in.
So far, still only a 1-for-1 as well. It was an 80 carry for support trade. We have the Dragon up as well, so we're just gonna look for the Herald trade. Opening up that mid tower, actually, best response they can do right now.
It's definitely a good response. They have to give up this Ocean Drake. It's the first Drake of the game for Mythos, and they crack open the middle lane. Might be able to get a secondary bop with this Rift Herald, but Cheetah is looking for it to cull this Rift Herald down. Looking for it to get it. He will manage to find it. Winter's Bite connects, but Blundering, he's there on his own. He's looking for the engage. But the Bard Q will just stop them in their tracks.
Yeah, they're just going to take away that Scuttle Crab, and that should be the end of it. The scary thing about that, so despite Mythos more or less coming up with a teamfight win there, obviously only a 1-for-1 in a trade, but it looked like Mythos could fight again if they wanted to, whereas Resolve looked like they couldn't. Mythos was still so split on the focus. Like, really, really split. The Gragas cask whiffed really hard in that fight as well. It was just a mix of too many different targets being called there. It looked like they wanted to focus a Braum, and then, sorry, not Braum, Bard, sorry. And Braum was going hard for the Bard, which just didn't make a lot of sense, where Braum should be a lot closer towards his Jinx, not flashing to engage for his team. So, a bit of a worrying trend for Mythos from there. It looked really sketchy. Let's see if they can clean up on the next team fight when it comes up.
We'll have to see if they can indeed clean up the next team fight. You have an extra couple of items being finished off by Ishida and Manrabo. You have the Turbo Chem Tank and the Everfrost there, but then on the side you have an item finished off by Madison Beerfan, and you have the Kraken Slayer finished off by Maiku. So he's sitting on 2 items. Will not be a slouch in these upcoming team fights. Will be able to pump out a lot of damage. So you have to keep your eye on him, especially when he has ultimate available to try and self-peel. As Zenosi gets caught out, Light Binding will not connect. He'll manage to get away.
Yeah, moving around as a unit right now is 5-man strong towards that top side, trying to catch Sheeta. Sheeta's quite low here, but not able to get much more. The rest of his team has arrived. Baron has spawned as well, so that objective is up here.
Stone Cooker smited away the blue buff, denying it away from Mythos here. Blundering, just waiting in the brush, looking to see if he can find anything. Fishing, looking for it.
So it is another Ocean Soul for this game, by the way. So we already had the first 2 dragons taken, which was the Infernal and the Cloud. And we have another Ocean Soul, second game in a row. So definitely a big soul to be playing for.
It definitely is. You want it as a denial if nothing else, but it would work so well on both these teams. It will make playing out these extended team fights a lot easier, especially for the squishy members of Resolve Academy. The Stone Cooker gets caught out. Primordial Burst comes through as well, but Otter, he's there. He has the ultimate. Gonna be kiting this guy to all hell. Is Losi gonna try and get away with the Audacious Charge? Squiddy's gonna try and get her way away.
Look how tanky that man is. He went for the Immortal Shield Bow. They didn't have the damage.
Oh!
1 HP in a dream. This man escapes with his life from the Jinx Rocket. Sat on a ward, didn't know he was there, but luckily escapes that one. So close.
Just a wisp of health there. Had to be double digits. Had to be.
Man, that's crazy. Like, that could have almost been game changing. Because if Graves dies there, that was more than likely the Baron Force. But unfortunately, he gets away with his life.
And it just shows what this Jinx pick can do when you have that Super Mega Death Rocket available. You've hit the 2-hour Power Spike, you'll throw out so much damage in these team fights, especially when you use your rockets for the extended attack range, and then you just have so much damage. And then it just doubles that because of the Ruinous Hurricane.
Yeah, Jinx having that Runance as well is very big pickup right now. Xayah had to pay the tax as well. Xayah had to pick up a QSS, so that delays her items too. That's 1,300 gold down the drain pretty much, because pretty much have to buy it. It's just the tax.
You can't QSS away from the rockets! Has to flash to safety, as they're going to try and cull this wave. Try and push them away from the tower. FGG gets caught out, has to flash over the claw. Looking to get onto Otter. Otter gets feared back. He is dead to rights here. Tempered Fate locks one down, but he is gone. Jinx gets excited, but that's a beautiful light binding there. We'll just stop them in their tracks. Blundering isn't tanky enough as Stone Cooker takes him out. It's Sheeta caught out on the wrong side of the rift here. He's tanky, but he's not tanky enough as the exhaust goes through. One more attack finishes him off. That's a team fight win heavily in favor of RSVA.
And this is exactly what we talked about earlier. Mythos just don't look on the same table in team fights, and it shows. Resolve just look a lot cleaner in these fights, and they come out consistent. They lose one person for free, and they also get the dragon off the top of this.
And it's your squishiest member that went down as well. This gives you the Baron. Nothing can be done by the side of Mythos to try and respond to this. You've Manrabo with the teleport, but he is not off of Death Timer just yet. 5 seconds and he will be. Do you teleport in? The rest of the team is slowly on the way.
It's going to be too late. The Baron's almost gone already. There's so much damage, and they're already just going to be out there via the bot tunnel.
They just decide, you know what, we're just going to give this one up, not even going to try and contest it. We saw Dunlosi on your minimap there. He started off on his Wolves, went over to his Gromp now, so they are just going to try and farm this one up. They are in a 5,500 gold deficit at this point. We're almost 25 minutes into the game. 3 towers to 1, 3 Drakes to 1. And once again, it looks like it's going to be a clean-cut game for Resolve Academy.
Yeah, it's looking that way. I'm also going to give a secondary task for Phil this game. I'm going to make him count how many times a Jinx ult hits Graves, because so far it's been 3 times. 1 time was very close, the other 2 not so much. So I'm going to make him count, see how many times we get that landed on Graves, because it's interesting.
Stone Cooker caught out with the claw, but so deceptively tanky, especially with this Immortal Shield Bow. You get the healing from FGG, you get the shielding and healing from Otter.
And Lord Dominic's as well. Like, he is going to shred Hecarim and Gragas.
And then he has his True Grit passive as well. It's just so difficult to kill this Graves. He's just invading into the enemy jungle. He just doesn't care.
Yeah, why not? At this point, I don't think any burst will take him down. I don't think Vigar's strong enough to take him down. Talking of taking down, they got Lulu.
They got the Lulu, but that's the squishiest member on the side of Resolve Academy. In comes the Tempered Fate as the claw goes down. Stone Cutter gets cut off, but uses the ultimate to try and deal some damage. Zelosi gets away. The Mega Gnar comes through. He Gnars back too, but doesn't get them in the right direction. Doesn't stun them against the wall as the cast comes through. Medicine Beer Fan gets picked off, and Stone Cutter, he is cut down. The rest of Resolve Academy gonna try and get their way away, but they are dead to rights here. Out comes the Featherstorm. FGG cut down for the ace.
And then we just get a clean turnaround. Lulu got picked off early, and at that point, no one could walk forward. But Not overstepped really hard there, and just gets absolutely obliterated. He went Stone Plate second instead of Serix this time round, so he's a lot squishier, and isn't going to be as tanky for his team just yet. And pretty much got exposed for that. Got punished, and then he just ran them down.
And it narrows the gold gap by a decent percentage. It's about a 2,000 gold lead now for Resolve Academy when it was a 3,500 gold lead. So you have narrowed it a little bit. You bought yourself some time. If you can keep getting picks like that, if you can keep getting out to Otter when he has no forward vision, if you can keep finding a team fight win that's as decisive as that one, then you're back into the game. You can win this game. But you have to feel Resolve Academy will have this in their playbook now. They will know not to do that again. They need to push forward with forward vision. They will learn from their mistake.
Let's hope so, because I think that's the second time Otter's been caught where it could determine the game. The first time didn't matter so much because the rest of the team had already threatened their backline. Whereas this time around, they got caught before anything else even happened. They need to be letting this Graves front line. They need to be letting others walk first.
Manrabo caught out. Nothing he can do with Stone Cooker in his face. Blundering. Cancelled his own recall there just to try and provide some support. Could only throw out a couple of Winter's Bites.
Yeah, caught in no man's land. There's nothing what was really going to save him there, and you've seen the damage come through from that Grace. He just got absolutely obliterated instantly, and there's nothing was going to save him at that point. There's no way he's going to outrun a Lulu Grace.
No, definitely not. He can just use the dash. He gets the powered movement speed from the Lulu. He can also get that from the Bard as well, thanks to his Bard Shrines. They're just Fnatic death brushing this. Dunlosi looking for a pick. Maiku is off to the side. He has his ultimate and his flash available if he needs to use it. He uses the Featherstorm, but goes through the Bard portal at the same time. FGG gonna try and piece out there as Otter gets over the wall with the flash. It comes the teleport now for the follow-up. Temper Fate catches onto Blundering. He's not the one to catch. They get the disengage thanks to the Veigar Claw. But they're onto the Drake Tusk. Will be Ocean Soul. They need to contest this on the side of Mythos.
Yeah, they're trying to find a way back in here. Gnar has Mega on the side, but it's already gone, yeah.
He has the Nara available, will knock them back into the rest of his team. Out comes the Exhausted Dunlosi, gonna try and get away, but Jinx, he gets excited for the triple kill! That is not what you want on the side of Resolve Academy. That is not what I was expecting, but the damage is good when you are on 3. Items 6, 0, and 4. This is the team fight you're looking for. Ocean Soul does not matter if you are just dead.
Yeah, Jinx just free firing there. Another good Veigar cage just denying any other entry. Gnar just can't find his way around, and both Gnar and Grace committed over there. And just get absolutely punished. Jinx damage is showing, and as soon as she hits 4 items, it's going to be even scarier because she's already got huge range as it is. And it's just going to be so much consistent damage coming through from her. If she gets to free fire like that, it's going to be game for Mythos.
Come back, presumably to pick up an Infinity Edge, and there it is. 4 items now for this Jinx. That is 100% crit chance, if I am not mistaken.
And also Lord Dominic's as well, so anyone who's tanky isn't really
even
going to be
Kraken Slayer
tanky
too,
enough.
my friend.
Yeah, like, he is really, really going to melt people. Red buff already picked up. This is a very scary Jinx.
80%. 80%
She
crit
is
chance. Oh yeah, it's 20%
prime
now,
target
not
number
25.
1.
But even with 80% crit chance, alright. Okay, not 100%. I hold my hands up and say I was wrong about that one, but that, I don't think it really matters when you're talking about 20%. Especially when you can pick up the last crit item. Cloak of Jelly will give you a decent amount more if you want to pick that up. Or you can pick up more control wards for more vision. It is all about the vision game, especially when you're playing around the Baron, and in 4 minutes time the Elder Drake. She's just looking for an engage, but will be stopped by the Bard Binding.
And all Jinx just needs is someone just to walk forward. If someone walks forward, Jinx will walk forward. As long as there's that protection there, as long as there's that vision there as well to also give her that reassurance, she will free fire.
And Stone Cooker has finished off his QSS as well, paying the respect to the CC that can come out from Mythos. You need to. When a Jinx can get a 3-man mega damage down onto them with the empowered Q autos, it's just something that you have to pay respect to. As in comes the Temper Fate, it's onto Dunlosy. They stop the Baron. Here comes the engage. The Claw goes down. That's a huge cooldown being burned now. All of a sudden, in goes Dunlosy onto the backline. He gets onto Otter. Otter, he is squishy, but he has the ultimate. Gets the knockup, but in comes the damage from Manrabo. Can
Jinx
you take the
got
team fight in the end, though? Jinx did get cut out, got shut down, and now that's all the damage on the side of Mythos, just gone dead to rights. Stone Cooker, he is left in no man's land, but not for long. The double kill for the Xayah, the team fight win for the Xayah, and the game for Resolve Academy.
Yeah, that Noah Mega actually was so huge there, finding that access towards that Jinx. Cheetah was so split off on the Gragas, he was walking into no man's land, ended up walking into the Xayah, and Xayah just pretty much gets set up for the Jinx. Jinx gets taken down, and that's just pretty much the game from that point onwards, because their damage is completely gone.
Blood Ring up in 5 seconds. 8 seconds on the Jinx. You cannot stop the onslaught from Resolve Academy. One team fight loss just spelled the end of the series. A Resolve, welcome back your Academy team to the UKEL.
And to be honest, it was a huge throw from Mythos what led to that. Mythos were in the driver's seat. They looked like they were forcing the issue on the Baron. And in the end, they're just not on the same page. And it showed. It showed they just were so unorganized in fights. And Resolve just had their number.
And it looked so good. For the Jinx, for Affen just looked so... It was within their grasp, the win, taking us to a third game. It was in the realm of possibility. You were 6-0-4 on this Jinx. Got excited. I got excited too, I have to say. But when you could just get onto the Jinx, you just lost all of your damage. All of your damage in the team fight, and then they couldn't even kill the Graves. Stone Cooker was just literally unkillable. He had his Immortal Shield bow, he had the Bard shielding, or the Bard healing, and then the Lulu shielding and empowered speed. What can you do with that? Versus his passive, which gives him extra armor?
And you see why they prioritized the Xayah in these drafts. They played around it really well. Obviously, the scaling of Xayah is still amazing. People always forget she scales so well into the game. Mm-hmm. And they just constantly had that protection for her to put out damage, despite the Jinx making 2 team fights really difficult for her. Other than that, it never really looked a point where she was too pressured down, where she couldn't put out damage, where she couldn't throw down feathers before dying or anything in a team fight. And huge props to Madison Beer Fan for just that last engage was just game winning, pretty much.
It looked so good for so long for Mythos. I'm sad for them that they lost that, but they do get a second chance. They will play in the losers bracket tomorrow versus the loser of the next game, or the next series, I should say. So not all is lost for them. We have Munster Rugby Gaming versus X7 at half 2.
Oh, honestly, that one's going to be a spicy one because I feel like I already know how it's going without even seeing it, because recently I casted the X7 games and that team is scary. That team has so many win conditions. They can play through so many different lanes. It's a really spicy team, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss the next games.
Definitely not. And as an Irish man myself, I want Munster Rugby Gaming to win so that they stay in the UKEL. But I'm also a fan of spicy games. I'm also a fan of new teams and the underdog story. So I do want to see X7 do well as well. So it's going to be a spicy best of 3. Congratulations to Resolve for getting their Academy team to the UKEL. Welcome back, as I said, as we did have Resolve main roster with us before they promoted up to the NLC. So we're going to go to a break, I think, if I'm not mistaken. If we aren't going to a break, then that we're just gonna come back for our second series of the day, Munster Rugby Gaming versus X7. Gonna be a spicy one. You don't want to miss it. That'll be it from me, Darksel, and my good friend here, Rail. We'll be back again for more UKEL action very soon. See you then.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the UKEL promotion series. I'm Viper, joined by Nymera. I'm even pointing the correct way nowadays because I know what's good. And we're coming into our second game of the evening. We've got evening? It's light out. I don't know. Sleep cycles don't exist anymore.
Well, it's been a long day, but Captain, it's 2:30. Yeah, and it is time for our second series, as you were saying. We just saw, of course, Mythos lose out to Resolve Academy. However, the other team, the first seed coming out of those qualifiers, was X7, and I know you've got a lot to talk about them when they face up against Munster, don't you, Will?
Yeah, I have seen them play a few times. Obviously, I was casting for them in the first day of the Open qualifier. Actually, fun fact, a member of the UK esports community messaged me just this morning asking me who X7 were playing. And I was like, well, they're playing Munster Rugby, but like, why are you asking me specifically? And they were like, oh, are you not coaching for them this season? I heard that around. So apparently I'm X7's coach. I've been told,
right.
But I'm hard start gold. So, you know, Anonymous could learn a thing or two from me. But it is a really, really exciting team top to bot. But Munster Rugby looking much improved over the course of the split. They made a couple of changes that really seemed to have worked out for them. Wasn't enough to get them out of relegation, but it could be enough to see them through in this relegation series. Because, of course, only one team's being knocked out overall.
Exactly, because we have 3 juicy UKEL spots up for grabs. And I know you're talking about, Munster Rugby overcoming so much in terms of the trials and tribulations they had to go through during this split. They didn't make it out of that last spot, but they damn nearly made it into playoffs, even coming into the final day. And I know our running joke is that obviously Viperun is like, the overlord of the UKL casting staff, and if you annoy someone enough, then you get paired with me. He's finally returned to return me to his own pairing to overcome one final trial, one final tribulation, just like Munster Rugby in this series.
Absolutely. They have to come through, and it is a punishment to cast for me. That's true. You can ask previous casting partners about that one. Munster looked much improved. You look at Raisins as the kind of key catalyst to that kind of change, and then he moved bot lane. The shot calling looked much cleaner around the map. Keverman started to play a little bit better, and now this bot lane for Munster is starting to look a little bit more like a strength. And on the other side for X7, their bot lane is probably their weakest factor. And this isn't saying their bot lane isn't good, because they are exceptional players. But you look at the likes of Anonymous, you look at the likes of Raider, you look at Shammy. These are really individually technically proficient players. So the question is, can the strong point of Munster match up with the weak point of X7? And how do they do so? Because if Munster lose bot lane, then you look across the rest of the map and someone would really need to take it to a new level we haven't seen from them this split if they wanted to win a game like that.
Absolutely, and I know that we were chatting a bit off air, just prepping, comparing notes, and you're talking about, well, okay, Raider always plays aggressive. He always goes and pushes up. Occasionally gets zoned off a wave early on into the game if he takes a bad trade because of that. But then also one of the specialities, I would say, of the UKEL in this split, particularly looking at players like Rengis, looking at N4 as well from Viper, who's playing just up in the promo relegation to the UKLC, been very successful with a style that is nullifying around topside. You play stuff like Malphite, Cho'Gath, Nar can do this as well. It's not like this league hasn't had its share of carry top laners, like of course Sin in the first part of the split, typical in the second part of Demise Academy too. If I'm looking and now at Synapse on Munster Rugby and saying, alright, okay, you're up against another archetype of a player that is just going to go hell for leather, it's not like they've never had experience against that style.
Yeah, that style has been prevalent at times. It's, as you say, not necessarily what we've seen this season in the UKEL, but Munster will have been scrimming around. It's unlikely they've just been looking at these UKEL teams where they've been getting their practice, and you have to be able to play against players who play those slightly more weird champions. You look at even the likes of Extra Cheeky, who was on Mythos, didn't play in that last series where they did lose out in the end, but you need to know how to play against these Dariuses, these Camille's, these Jaxes, the stuff that can carry you through the late game, because Raider is an absolute monster. The one thing we will say is we have moved into picks and bans, and Darius has been banned away, Classic, also the fresh Alistair and the Jax. I don't even need to make the point. The point was, where are the bans going to go? The answer is, as always, Raider.
There they are. You just can't give Raisins playmaking picks either. Thresh and Alistair on down that bot side. It does it's pretty much played out how you'd say it will. It's the strong points of the teams being targeted right now. It is only a best of 3. You don't get to flip around those adaptations and say, actually, we're not going to ban away one of these power picks and rather try and just pin down one of the weaker players and maybe remove their champion pool. I know it's actually going to be Bear Tree coming into the mid lane from Munster Rugby. It's actually not going to be Polycop. That's one extra thing to look into as well. In fact, I believe they were playing on one of the Newell teams this split, which I ended up casting, so I think they were on the Essex team. So they've come in, had some competitive games, in a competitive format. This is UKEL though, very different kettle of fish.
It is a very different place to be, and you can look at players coming in from the Newell to the UKEL and having massive success. You can even look at like Gregors now playing on Viperio in that promotion.
I've cast Gregors 13 times this week, by the way.
13 times?
There is a point where there is too much Gregors. Love the guy, but that's too much.
That is too much, far too much Gregors for anyone's liking. You have to say, not we love you Gregors, but at the same time, 13 is a lot of games. I don't want to see myself in 13 games of League of Legends.
I can't play 13 games in a week as it currently stands. But going back to this game, which is definitely one that these players will want to be involved in and playing to their fullest extent. The Senna being locked down is interesting to me because there's been a lot of back and forth on Senna after the Rageblade nerfs as to what do you even build on this champion? Is it worth building because, well, both worth even playing at this point? It does allow you to play with that global from the bot side of the map as a support, as that carry role. It can impact top lane 1v1s with that shield and damage.
Something fast. Okay, right, Maokai is rel. I was very interested because we were talking about nullifying top laners. That would have been an option, but it's going to be railed down in that support role. The Hecarim and the Orianna. Orianna, one of Shammy's preferred champions, had very consistently strong performances on this one in the Promotion Open qualifier last weekend. And Orianna's just quite an evergreen mid laner. Tristana also going to be thrown in alongside that rel to give a good amount of options. Not the flex pick that we're used to seeing from this champion, but a very, very strong marksman.
For the record, I hate the fact that you call Orianna an evergreen champion when Maokai is used just as that placeholder pick. We know you're not going to see him anymore in this game. It's like, yeah, let's make the tree pun while it's still there.
Okay, no, we have to get it out of the way.
Silas is really strong in the current patch. Flicking over to the Cogmore very quickly, but so this is likely to be flex between mid and top. Actually, into Raider, you're not going to be playing tanks, so it's probably going to be that mid lane. It's kind of obvious at this point. You can go towards the Muramana because you have something like a 1.3 AD ratio on your little chain lash, and then of course you get an extra 125% attack speed too. You just absolutely spin through minion waves and champions, and when you get that on-hit damage from the Muramana transformation coming through, your burst is very, very high.
It is quite fascinating though, because the Silas is a very strong pick in his own rights, but is an exceptionally strong pick into stuff like the Malphite, where you really want to be stealing that team fight changing ultimate. But
Ornn
Raider,
well.
Yeah, and Ornn as well. But these aren't Raider picks. These aren't champions that we necessarily expect to see him play, but we're also not going to see him on the Camille, as that is the third ban away. So all the champions I mentioned he liked playing in the pre-show have now been removed, with Gragas and Poppy also being taken off the table in this ban phase so far. Top lane is looking a little bit sticky with the Aurelia also off the table. There's still those tank options, but it'll be fascinating to see where Raider goes.
Tryndamere, let's go! That's a very good question. Maybe we start seeing some, because I mean, I know that we saw a bit of, well, just looking at what Rifty was playing in the UKLC and other carry top laners. I mean, you can play stuff like the AD carry top lane, right? You can play something towards more like that vein. The Lee Sin being hovered. There have been whispers of lane Lee Sin. Wouldn't necessarily blind pick it unless you were really, really confident in it. And I guess kind of just taking a little bit of a step back while we wait for this to come in. Rel Tristana is very much a pressure lane in the bot side. That kind of goes against the narrative of what we've got going for this team of X7. Unless they get to pick up again some kind of pocket pick top laner, looking a little bit out of character for X7.
A little bit. It's one of those things where the picks are individually not that surprising, I guess you could say. But it'll be very, very fascinating to see how they rise up and finish up their draft. And the Elise pickup is not something I'm a super big fan of.
It's related to Elise. It's got to be at this point. You just think, okay, right. If Raider's job is normally just to make the other laners, the other top laners game just hell, Reluctant Elise is just the original way to do that. That is where top laners learn to sit under their tower and realize actually there is only so far away from the turret you can get while still being a player in the game. The Cho'Gath is locked in. Hard to dive if you use your Rupture well, and Cho'Gath can outplay dives, but Synapse has to play very, very well. Not just that, you need to be feeding him the right kind of information. If Elise is constantly this sword of Damocles on the top side, I'm using so many Greek mythology puns today, but if you're going to go towards that top lane dive style, then having something like a Shen definitely helps. But if you don't feed the information to your Cho'Gath, they're going to die over and over.
Absolutely. Are we going to see the Shen support coming through? Is that what we're expecting in this one? Are we going to see it fasting Senna with Shen taking the gold? Are we going to see just a classic Shen support?
So we didn't see people flip around picks there, because obviously I saw that lockdown. I'm like, oh, okay, shit, Cho'Gath weak side top laner. There's actually a very good chance this is now Shen's top side to ignore the Renekton stun. Then you have farming Cho'Gath with the Senna as the support, just farming up their souls and rather than farming up minions. Have to see what happens when we get into the rift to see who's piloting what champions. Actually looking at that, yes, Cho'Gath is hard to dive, good weak side top laner. Shen into the Renekton though, you can win that matchup, you can outplay the W as well. I'm actually not liking, I'm not disliking rather, that flex and that pivot from Monster Rugby.
We'll have to see if that is what they've actually decided to do. We've jumped back into Champ Select because, of course, that Maokai wasn't a Maokai, which means that we're going to have to run this one back a little bit. But
branching out into other champions, you could say.
No, don't like that. It's fine when I do it, not when you do it.
I get one.
Me.
I get one for free.
You get one, and you've had it already. It's already been thrown out.
It's like when you've got a PG-13 thing. You get one specific use of that word, and that's it.
Yeah, it's the same with casting. You get one, and then you're out. Then you're back to Newell with you.
That's the one.
With your tail between your
legs. Be gone, Nymera. Be gone.
Be gone. Come back when you've learnt your lesson. But Monster Rugby have gone for a very, very interesting composition, which we haven't got 100% confirmation where everything is going, but we will do very shortly. X7 have gone for something a little bit more traditional, but it has to go well early in that top side because Elise and Renekton are not your late game boys. They're not your going late.
And there will come a point if Renekton is not ahead where you jump into a Cho'Gath, silence, and you just die. You just die. So this is a lot for me on Raider to show that poise. First off, if you are going to get ahead, if you are even in this game heading into team fights, it's a lot about the angles you choose because you can't just ram it down the center of a team fight against a center, against that Cho'Gath like you're saying, because it's just such a minefield without a Ziggs involved with the rupture and the W that mist coming out of the center as well. It's very easy to disengage that champion. So yes, it does have to go well early. And what that means for me then, it's very much on Goose and Synapse now, particularly because you have that Spirit's Refuge from the Shen to dodge out, auto attacks, and that can dodge out the Renekton W to outplay those dives. Because if it does get rolling, you do have this Elise and Renekton, which is blow up the first person into the fight. It's dangerous side of Monster Rugby on the flip side.
And it will be the Shen in the top side confirmed there as Synapse locks that one in. And this means that a lot of the onus is on X7 early. And weirdly, we were talking about this a little bit when we came in. From what we saw in the promotion tournament, Raider, individually an exceptional player. Anonymous, individually an exceptional player. The weakness in this duo is when they are separated and when Raider is left alone to his own devices against the enemy top. We saw it a little bit in Degree Sports where whenever he was on screen, Raider was doing bits. Every time Raider was off screen, you could see the health bar getting chunked lower and lower up in the corner where you can see the champion portrait. He would be forced off waves a little bit. He would never really die. It would never become to that, but he was getting bullied a little bit. And if on Renekton you're really having to be the bully, if the weakness in your game is those early stages, a couple of missteps into a Shen, he becomes unkillable, and then you have a massive problem.
Exactly, because it's not like Shen doesn't have turnaround damage. Having that Spirit Sword, particularly if you pull that through an enemy champion to get the increased damage against the Renekton, when you can already outplay with your passive shield, which has been buffed, it was buffed like a couple of seasons ago, which was, I question that because Shen is actually quite a strong niche, but strong in that niche. And in this game, I think this is we'll end up seeing that from the Shen because again, because they're not just being able to outplay the dive, but being able to go bot. But you can win that matchup versus Renekton too. It seems like Shen, if piloted correctly by Synapse and has the backup of Goose on this Hecarim, and if you get to be on the same side of the map as at least you pop the Ghost, pop the E, Hecarim will turn up to those plays. So Synapse, a lot of the onus is on them, which is very different from the regular season from Monster Rugby, to outplay and use this Shen to the full effect.
Absolutely, and putting a lot of onus on the Synapse is, as you say, something that we haven't seen Monster Rugby necessarily doing in terms of how they like to win games. It is about Kevin Mann, it is about getting that bot lane going and having Raisins kind of either running the map and like making sure that everyone is exactly where they need to be, or sticking with Kevin Man and saying, you're the one who's getting fed. We are marksman meta, please do your damage. So whether Monster Rugby will be moving Raisins more aggressively up even towards that top side to try and keep Synapse safe and get things going could definitely be an option.
But moving Raisins up is obviously, well, it's difficult, right? Because you've got a center. Because with that center, you want to be kind of just soaking up pressure, farming, poking out, yes, but like you want to be nullifying this actually very dangerous bot lane as well, because I know we talked about top lane, but nameplates off, yes, I mean, you kind of start forgetting about the whole Raider impact on the game, but Sin and Royal, they do have one of, if not the premier all-in bot lanes now. Rel Tristana, this was picked up by LPL right at the start of this split, right at the start of the season, and it has been crushing. Yes, if you're into something like an Alistair, you can get disengaged effectively, but it's not like in the early game, Cho'Gath and Senna can interrupt the crash down. They can get all in on, so come level 2, Kevman and Raisins might be in a bit of trouble. So moving them out of that lane, particularly when Tristana can just bonk the turret too, I'm not sure Monster Rugby really want to do that.
Yeah, and in which case we can see the classic kind of sticking those two in a duo, making sure they work together, especially if they're going for fasting center. We won't have confirmation until we see what items are picked up at the beginning of the game, because it could be
with
the
a Cho'Gath
farming.
Almost certainly fasting. Getting the Cho'Gath to gold it's valuable. You don't play Cho'Gath support regularly. Just saying that.
I don't know what you do in your rank games, but I've seen things down at my elo that would make your blood boil. I had a mid lane Pyke who decided to go 0-6 in my last rank game.
Oh,
that
perfect.
was fun. But yeah, it's gonna be a case of if
they're there, Will. They're there.
Life is hard down in gold, but the bot lane for Monster Rugby, if they're gonna be the point where they have to stay together, then it does become, hey, this is how Monster Rugby like to play. We know that they like getting Kevin Man fed. We know that they like Raisins running the show. In which case, it's on Sin and Royal to prove that they can still get kills or nullify what they're doing there. And then you've got a case of, well, Anonymous probably looks towards this top side, because I can't really see the Elise wanting to hang around Senna, Cho'Gath. Yes, you've got massive amounts of engage in the bot side, but there's just higher value gank targets elsewhere.
That there are. I guess we need to talk about the Silas then. Again, just kind of moving it onto another area of the map, because we haven't really talked about this mid lane. I think that Silas can actually end up winning out against Renekton in the side lane too, given the Muramana build. But Raider, this is where you can start shining if things don't go so well early. Renekton into Silas has traditionally been a really good matchup for the Renekton, because Silas jumps in and you just get W'd and then you get chased back. Also feeding into that, I suppose, that Silas doesn't have great ults to steal. Stealing the Renekton ult is okay in a 1v1 setting, and getting that just the extra bursts of HP, and the fact that Renekton ult does have a slight AP scaling, it's 0.1. You don't go Wizard Lizard, it doesn't work. He has nothing else besides that ult, and absolutely no Nash's builds are allowed in this game. But if you do end up stealing that Renekton ult in Silas, you kind of use it better than Renekton does in a number of facets, because again, you are waiting for your next cooldown of that W yourself, which has been buffed in the last couple of patches. With the Muramana though, particularly into the Orianna, you should actually be able to get some pressure yourself if you're Monster Rugby going into that 1-3-1, particularly because you have a Shen ult too.
Yeah, they have the ability to move members around the map very, very quickly. Shen ultimate, Hecarim, of course, can get from one side of the map to the other really quickly. Senna ult can get involved, even if she herself is not going to be able to follow up on that. So for X7, it's a case of knowing that they've got the ability to get a kill, plus an extra 20-30% on top of that damage-wise. Because come level 6, getting those plays is going to be much more difficult, unless you know that either those abilities are used and they're down, or you have to specifically be focusing on that top or bot side onto the Senna, onto the Shen, if they're the only one with the ultimate available. Because yes, Senna can ult for just herself, but it's not really the optimal play, and of course Shen can't ult on top of himself, so you maybe need to be focusing in these areas.
And if Elise gets rolling, I mean, this is a pick comp from X7. You jump in with the Orianna, not the Orianna. No, you jump in with a Tristana, who might have an Orianna ball on them, but don't do that. It's not advised. Particularly Anonymous, if you're kind of leading the charge, denying vision, sitting in a brush, and then just being that pesky little spider who turns into something very, very scary with a couple of kills on them, then Monster Rugby might be trying to play the game slower, play across those side lanes. If you run into the Elise, though, you get picked off. Suddenly you've got a Tristana free hitting on a tower as Munster are looking to kind of reset the map and scramble to defend. That can be where X7 win this game through. They get get one pick and they start just wailing on towers.
Yeah, and one pick could actually be all it takes. And this is all of this conversation is theoretical with nameplates off, right? Pretty much. When we look at nameplates on and moving back in, you'd probably favour X7. It's a very weird position where the team coming up, and it was almost the same thing in the last game as well, but slightly less, is the team coming up has probably got the better man-for-man, player-for-player advantage in terms of the technical ability of the players. You look at players like Raisins, who are exceptionally talented and veteran in the scene, but you've got players like Anonymous, high challenger at the beginning of the season. You've got players like Raider, these technically very, very gifted individuals. And while you look at X7 and you think the burden of execution is on you. You need to get stuff going early. You're the pick competition. Things need to be good. You put the nameplates back on and think, well, maybe they can shoulder that burden quite well.
I mean, this isn't the premier topside win condition, because of course it does fall off if you don't get enough done early. That's something you need to be worried about. Another thing for me is actually, nameplates off, I'd favour X7's bot lane in Sin and Royal, but Raisins has just been so good. And while this bot lane in 2v2 is not a matchup I'd favour for the Sana Cho'Gath, because again, there's no way to interrupt that rocket jump, no way to interrupt the crash down either. I think that given how good Kevin and Raisins have been towards the end of this split, maybe that gives Monster Rugby another bit of a platform to play off in their own regard.
We'll have to see if they can play off that platform as we have moved on to the Rift for our first game of this series. Of course, it's a best of 3 as we mentioned earlier, so it will be the winner of this one taking advantage, but not their place in the UKEL just yet. X7 on the blue side, Monster Rugby Gaming on the red. Nymera, quick prediction from you before we fully jump on in.
Oh gosh. X7 looked really scary coming into this series. Before this draft, I would have maybe said 2-1 to X7. I think that Monster, again, given how good they were at the end of the split, now that they've had some time to look at X7, who have been playing on stream and then have their practice off stream, I think that's something which they can play around. Given this draft, though, I think Monster Rugby probably takes this game because Raider is not on the easiest win condition champion. But I think the advantage for me, just the nameplates and how scary they looked in the qualifiers, still goes to X7 for me.
Interesting. Excited to see if you're correct or you're proven wrong by the Monster Rugby, the Irish team coming on through, trying to prove that they have what it takes to remain.
They're looking scary in the Pro 14. That's all I know about them right now.
Yeah, you know, it's maybe not on the Rift so much this season, but as you say, it was a very, very closely run competition throughout the entirety of the split, and the loser of this game will go into a match tomorrow to try and grab themselves a position in UKL, because 3 out of 4 of these teams will be joining us in that league next split. You can see Goose just starting up with that full clear, very capable of doing so as Hecarim, very safe, very quick.
Poultry on poultry violence, Goose taking the chickens. You hate to see it.
You really do. Yeah, stuff like this. Oh, one big sweep round gets the kill onto all of those small and big birds. But with these 2 junglers, you'd expect Hecarim to have the faster clear and probably be on the map a little bit quicker. But Elise can get a decent amount of work done on those early ganks, even without all of those camps being taken, and is actually moving immediately towards this top side already.
That he is. So Synapse immediately walks away from the tower. This is the Renekton Elise life. He's not level 3. He doesn't have all of his abilities just yet. Having a he wouldn't get to have the Spirit's Refuge and the taunt at this point. He walks away from the tower. You've done so much good work, Synapse. Please don't walk up to that bush.
I think it's very smart from Goose here to have started on that top side to take stuff like the Krogs down, because he knew, come level 3, he wasn't going to have any power at his top side. Elise moves in immediately, gets the proxy down for the Renekton, but by and large, Anonymous doesn't gain anything individually from that play, just giving Raider a little bit of extra time, and Goose knows exactly what's going on, and will head down immediately to the bot side to pick up the scuttle after the full clear. And yes, Synapse is being bullied a little bit, but this is exactly what we'd expect, and the rest of Monster Rugby Gaming have responded very, very well.
There was such a large amount of XP lost, and this is going to be a proxied wave. They can walk up.
Oh no! They did the dive, but the other way around. Raider will be able to get a stun down. Here comes the Cocoon teleport onto tower, but it won't matter as Anonymous picks up first blood. Bear Tree a little bit late to save his friend. will just look to pick up the minions.
And this is one of the reasons I was a little bit skeptical of why Goose was starting topside going to bot, because you know this is the combo that's so threatening. Vetri, late teleport. I guess X7 was sat there thinking if the teleport gets channeled, we'll back off, but he channels it late. They get the kill, they get out. Yeah, they use the flash of Raider. It's another wave denied from Synapse, who is currently, well, almost 20 CS down with that many minions just being spawned into the game in each lane already. And Monster Rugby, it feels like they just kind of fumbled the obvious play from X7.
Yeah, it was very much, things looked okay, but then it was the case of, oh, Renekton's behind the tower, I'm cool, no one's going to be, that means he's not going to come from the front. But then Elise was like, I'll just do that.
It's one of the things which is so awkward is that if you just give up that many waves, it's about as good as getting a kill, because you're denying that much XP that Shen will never be able to side lane, even though you do have an okay matchup versus the Renekton. And now because Elise gets that kill too, you now have an XP lead in top, you have that individual advantage which they didn't quite gain off that first iteration of that play, and now that with that tier 2 boots picked up already, Anonymous is ready to just run rampant across the map very quick now with those tier 2 boots, and maybe the water walking coming in secondary. I'm not sure what the secondary runes are coming from that at least, and start snowballing things for X7.
And I mean, you also lose the teleport from Beartree. On the Silence, who did go top, you had to send Synapse mid to pick up that wave because the top wave had already been picked up. But a really awkward start for Monster Rugby Gaming on the top side of the map. Down on the bot side, things are chilling, as you said. Predicted perfectly. Raisins is the one picking up the farm and is staying pretty even with his lane opponent. Anonymous hanging around looking for something mid, but won't be able to find it just yet, especially when Beartree has picked up level 6. Is going in on the Orianna. Shami does need to be careful, but has a 6 of her own. Will hit the ultimate. The shockwave lands. The cocoon does not. As Beartree is able to wander away towards the bot side. Has Hecarim around, but Goose is only level 5, so no onslaught available. No kills in the mid lane this time.
Okay, so Anonymous, again, just hanging out in the river. Doesn't need to power farm, has camps cleared on that top side, and is going top again.
Ah, buddy.
What more can you say?
As well?
What more can you say? At this point, the Shen is out of the game. You have plates falling on top side. At least you're getting something on the bot side. But it's, again, one of the problems in the current meta about trying to play against pressure top lane is all of the champions which Raider is so well known for is that you don't really get to dive bot lane that well. Just because of the way that towers work and the supports that are in meta. Heck, if you try to dive either of these bot lanes, having a Rel and having that chariot, you're likely to get locked up and just die. Because of that, it means that Monster Rugby, they don't have an adequate response to what's happening on this top side. They lost 2.5 plates already. Because top side is the focus from X7, you expect them to get that Herald. They probably even won't need to use that on that tower top side to kill the first turret. And Monster Rugby, well, they're invading bot jungle. I don't think that's going to be great for them, though.
Yeah, Goose going to be slowed up, but does have Ghost, so should be able to ride away. But one thing also I really like about X7 is that they've got both of those kills onto Anonymous. Raider doesn't need them. He's got a massive farm lead and all that plate gold alongside, so he's going to be bullying Synapse regardless. And getting that money onto Elise means that you can start taking that wealth and sharing it around the map.
Exactly. Anonymous, with the topside pressure as well, is effectively just vertical jungle at this point, taking away top camps. And I wonder if this is why Goose started topside. Said actually, if Elise is going to be heading towards topside, I don't want to lose those camps too early. I want to start farming up, and then maybe we can survive, and they'll mess up their dive, and we kind of get a bit of a free win from that. That hasn't been the case at all. Goose has not been around to protect the topside dive. It hasn't been around with that Ghost to run in, and I think because of that decision making and the way that Synapse has not been able to avoid the ganks, and he's just used the Spirit's Refuge, so it's going to be another kill under this tower almost certainly. Yeah, look at this.
Damage coming on down, but Renekton isn't there just yet. Synapse trying to walk away, will be able to flash, but the repel and the damage almost seal Synapse's fate, but a little bit of a shield and a little bit of luck will see him out of the top lane. And actually, members from both teams are moving on up. Shami and Beartree having a bit of a scrap around. Tribush, Goose is hanging around as well. It will be a 3-for-2 though, but a nice dive away means the shockwave will not land. Anonymous needs to be careful on the side. It's pretty low with the teleport coming down. Monster Rugby looking to turn this fight around. The cocoon once again goes wide through the middle of two members as Synapse wandering on up full health this time. X7 do escape with their lives, but the dive doesn't yield any more kills.
It doesn't. Teleport use from Synapse does have level 5, just verging on level 6, so will have, of course, themselves one global to use. unfortunate thing about that play was that Goose ended up shoving Shammy closer to the wall, which allowed him to flash over. Of course, Hector using the ult by that point had no way to follow. Shammy gets out with just the use of the summoner. If it had been the ult over them and then the E backwards, maybe they would have gotten away with it. Of course, not to be the case. 2 kills still on the board for X7. Monster Rugby still searching for their first. And Raider, you can ban away 5 champions from him, or 4 I suppose in this draft, but it's just not enough. X7 have another top lane carry to put into his hands.
But Monster did manage to pick up the Rift Herald. Goose is holding that one, and it's pretty nice considering that they've had no power topside the entire game thus far. Goose does have the opportunity to drop down Herald and try and get Synapse a little bit more gold, or could look to say, right, top lane's a little bit dead, let's go somewhere else and get a gold lead elsewhere. But also, it denies gold away from X7, and when they had all of that power topside, you'd really have expected them to be the ones taking the neutral objective up there.
Just the timing of it, I suppose. Goose ends up walking towards it, and the Hacker at level 6, and is a force to be reckoned with in its own right. Of course, I just used that ultimate. Either way, I think just because of the resets that X7 had to use, and the fact that Orianna was out of the play for that time, I thought, alright, okay, they're just going to give up that one. What this means now is very important for Munster to think about where they're going to gain this gold from the Herald, because of course it was uncontested. It's not like it's being traded for a dragon, it's not like you've got bot lanes moving around and missing waves. This is a very crucial moment for them to see if they can get that gold into someone's pockets and try and stymie this early snowball from X7.
X7 haven't grabbed themselves anything of note for a couple of minutes, so the bleeding has been stemmed slightly for now, but Anonymous is, you know, saying if we want to get a play done, Synapse is probably the target once again, but the Red Ward will be spotted out alongside the Spider. Anonymous decides against Bear Tree, went missing on the map, and wisely the Elise steps away because Silas is moving towards top. You can see Goose also making a move, and the fact that Monster have now decided they're going to be protecting their top lane a little bit more is seeming to be working for them, at least for now.
This is what should have happened so much earlier into the game. They're going straight on to Shammy though instead.
They'll be able to get onto Shammy, the damage comes through, the ultimate from Setter as well, and the Orianna is down. Goose will be able to get that stand united, but will be killed before Shen can get involved in the fight. And now Bear Tree in a lot of trouble as Raider moving forward could be able to take up this tower. The Cocoon goes wide with the dive, once again being good from Bear Tree. But it will be a 1-for-1 trade. Monster Rugby on the board, but only an even exchange.
I think they are on the board. No flash from Raider means that the flash stun is not available there. Bear Tree ends up turning back alongside Goose onto Shammy. And we saw Goose and Bear Tree walk up towards that top side and just make sure that X7 were playing, trying to keep them at bay, you know? This should have happened so much earlier into the game, though. Before Synapse was forced off of so many waves, it is so often on your teammates to secure yourself a safe laning phase against that kind of dive combo. They didn't find the lane priority, though. They didn't find the correct jungle path to do so. Synapse is still down. At least he ends up... It's actually ironic in the fact that because Goose died before that ult teleport could come through, he ended up collecting another wave on topside. Maybe that was actually ended up being better for him. But as you can see, still very much losing out in this trades.
Yeah, not having a good time in this lane, which makes sense when you're 55 farm down at the 12-minute mark. To a Renekton, who already very, very good in the early game. Kevinman and Raisins roaming up to remind us that there is in fact a bot lane in this game as well. It's been very even down there. No plays, 1 assist for the center due to that ultimate, but past that, Sin just been given a little bit of free time down bot. But another neutral objective could well go over to Monster Rugby. Again, it's second dragon, it's Ocean, it's not the end of all things. And a little bit of money being funneled into the mid side as well. But it's still 2.5k down as the Inferno blazes across the rift.
That it does. So, 2 dragons on an Infernal Rift, Monster Rugby. Okay, right, get yourself another dragon and we can start talking, because I don't think the third one is going to be uncontested. You know that you're losing the top side of the map very heavily. Question is, at what point can X7 start trying to take down that bot lane outer turret? Of course, there's no Herald available now, has just been used by Munster. And X7, they need to find a way now to stop this dragon stacking. Part of that can be just by winning the fight around the next one, or they could just keep going topside, who knows.
Synapse is gonna be burnt lower and lower. Half health he stands at as the ambush gets delayed. But this is the thing, the third dragon fight is always pretty endemic of how the game's going and how the game will go for the foreseeable future after it. Munster have the advantage of the 2 dragons at this stage, and honestly, bot lane, it's looking okay for them. They've got priority at the moment and can probably try and gain some with a little bit of help moving forward at the exact right time, which is in about 3.5 minutes for that dragon. But you've got to wonder, with the amount of money that's been put into Elise and Renekton, they are very, very good at picking off champions. How are they going to do in the first major team fight?
I mean, you're going to have first item coming in through for Renekton. You're probably going to have that for the Elise sooner rather than later too. It depends who it is, of course. I mean, if you're going to go on to someone that's close to the center, yes, that Q and that ult are going to come through, and there's an exhaust to come into play as well. But if it's onto someone importantly like Goose or Bear Treat, Synapse, I guess, as well, although his use is kind of to be debated at this point. He'd rather be ulting into a fight than being the face checker. That can be where things get dangerous. They're going on to Goose now.
Ooh, Goose has been engaged on Royal, using that one for the first time this game, really, and Raider manages to grab the kill over on to the Hecarim.
Royal CC combos Goose into death. It doesn't even matter that the nerf on 11.7 to the Attract Repel stun has come through. It's just, whoa, Anonymous going, whoa, double bot.
Of sombreros as damage comes down. Shabby dodging, dipping, flashing away. Anonymous picks up the kill. The teleport not needed in the end as Raider decides to relocate to the mid lane, as they might look to see down this tower. Meanwhile, a silence jump from Sin. Interesting from the Tristana, but it will get her out of dodge.
It does end up buffering it beforehand. Shenol wasn't using either of those plays. Synapse was sat there and says, alright, okay, maybe they're already dead, maybe the communication wasn't coming in. Either way, it's a little unfortunate for Monster Rugby, who have to look at everything falling apart across the map. 6,000 gold deficit already. I'm not sure that's something Monster Rugby can play themselves out of. They do at least have themselves the center. They do have themselves the ability to disengage the Renekton if X7 takes their fights in the wrong way, from the wrong angles, as I like to keep saying. If Renekton jumps into too much CC, maybe there's something to be played around. There are also shutdowns to be claimed as well, but it is a long road back into parity in this game for Monster Rugby.
And I mean, for Monster Rugby, if this game can go long, if they can stall out, does their composition move into the late game better with the likes of Renekton and at least probably falling off?
I would actually say it's more about this bot lane because of that, actually. Because Shen is not going to be relevant in this game for a very long time. I think it's more about what the Cho'Gath and the Senna can do. They're both very good, as we said, about snarling up team fights, landing that CC and disengaging these shorter range champions like the Elise and the Renekton. When they are starting to dive in for those kills. Looking towards that top side as well. Yes, Elise versus Hecarim, normally something that falls off, but when you have 3 kills, 2 assists already at this point in the game, Anonymous will not be falling off so hard in this game.
And won't be falling off for a very long time, and Monster Rugby might not have lots of time left in this one. Of course, it's only 16 minutes in, the game is by no means over, but that 6,000 goal lead and the crucial third dragon coming up in just over a minute's time. You can already see members of X7 moving on down to try and get some control over the area. You can see resets coming in from Monster Rugby as they want to pick up as much power as they can before this fight. Wouldn't be surprised to see our first real team fight happening in the river in front of this pit.
So, got to see which items are picked up. We do have Mythic from Raisins. It's the Frostfire Gauntlet, trying to be tanky. That's a good thing because, well, this Shen is not going to be tanky in the slightest. The support, well, the bot lane is same level as their top laner on the side of Monster Rugby. Of course, Royal slightly down in XP, had to roam out and get some of those wards down, so not quite parity with Raisins at this point. Have half a minute left. X7, they did have control of the river, now they've ended up giving up some of that vision themselves. There's still a teleport, still an ult on Shen who can push in topside, which means that at least he doesn't have to fight another champion right now, because Raider doesn't have the teleport and has to go towards that bot side. I think you're right, I think the fight's brewing.
Yeah, Monster Rugby kind of holding position in front of the pit, but are being very, very careful not to be engaged on. If Monster Rugby want to take this perfect fight, who do they need to be focusing?
I think you just gotta try and keep them at range, make it as much as a numbers parity just by range, because if the Renekton can't get into the fight and someone else is caught in front of him, or instead actually Renekton goes too far, I think you can peel back as Munster, use your CC, use your range advantage, and then you can start charging in with something like the Silas and the Hecarim afterwards, if the Senna and the Cho'Gath have done enough work. As it stands, though, it looks like Munster is saying, actually, maybe this is the fight that would end the game for us if we lost it. We're not going to go for it, even though it would get a soul point. They'd rather farm out, rather get something onto Synapse. He does end up getting a number of ways on top side, and it's going to be the Dragon for X7.
Not a disaster for Munster. Weirdly enough, you see Munster being marshalled away, and X7 pretty slow to pull the trigger, maybe expecting more of a contest than that actually was. And I know we were both expecting there to be a team fight there, which never materialised, but good discipline from Munster, knowing that losing that fight could lose them the game, and taking the Dragon Soul, yeah, while it's very nice, or the potential for a Dragon Soul soon, it's not going to get them too much out of the hole that they're currently in, and just willing to give up that objective to give themselves a better opportunity in a more advantageous position.
Another thing do you just want to check in on, because again, just has a bit of a lull state now because that objective didn't end up getting fought around, rather, is that it's not going to be the hybrid size. You're not going to get that tier build, not going to get that Manamune into Muramana. It's just going to be the Everfrost. I think this spikes earlier for my liking because you're more likely to get yourself the Cosmic Drive and having the Zhonya's Hourglass too for more CDR, more Ws, which means you just brawl and heal a little bit more. Problem is, when you're against someone that's bursty like the Elise, getting around to that second cooldown of your W is looking less and less likely. It's going to be the Protobelt for that extra magic penetration. We do see a culmination of members of X7 on the bot side. Battery, you got to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, everyone needs to get out of there from Monster. Battery managing to get towards the rest of his team. A little bit of scrap in Tribush. Sin has been caught out by Goose, but I don't think Hecarim wins that fight. He's forced down to half health, so is Sin, as Battery looking to dive on in, but the Tristana's back behind the rest of the team now, and the tanks are moving forward. Renekton and Royal looking to maraud, looking to start this one up, but Raisin's giving them a scream to worry about. Hits the Rupture onto 2. And X7 not so convinced to move back and forward. Really nice they're coming through, but Renekton will still be able to get the engage. There's the fight. Here's kicking off Anonymous on the side. It's on Battery. So much damage going down onto the side. He's already fallen. Kevin Man puts it up through the rest of the fight as Raider is chased away. The Dominus won't keep him alive as the shutdown goes onto Goose. Now the fight is looking a little bit more even, but Shammy still dancing. Synapse has now moved in, looking to get the cut down, take down the Elise, stop the bullies who have taken him so low so often in this game. Goose will be taking the second kill of the fight before Raw can even engage, and there's the double going over to the Hecarim. Anonymous, confused about why this fight has gone so badly won, will try to scuttle away, but Raisins with one more auto could be enough. The flash is there, but Goose is quick and might be able to grab the kill. Decides against at the last second though, so we'll not be picking that one up. Anonymous should be able to escape. We saw Sin get out as well, but the first main fight of the game goes Monster Rugby's way.
Okay, so this is pretty much what we expected to happen. Again, with the Cho'Gath at center, you can buy time. Wait for the W to land, wait for the Rupture to land, and see if you can get something out of it. Raider gets hit by that center, W gets rooted up. Luckily, Battery just steps in range for that W stun. That makes things a little awkward, because then suddenly the Silas gets burst out and has to start trying to chug through a lot of those Kingslayer heals as the fight goes on. Monster Rugby, though, they finally get to find this 5v5. It is against the early advantage, that's why it is so even, and fortunately for the side of X7, Anonymous makes it out. There was no shutdown going over the side of Munster from the Spider Lady, and actually I guess the game's not quite over.
No, if you can get those kind of team fights a few more times, and if you can get those team fights specifically around objectives, because after that fight, Monster Rugby could have taken an objective if there was one on the map. Unfortunately for them, there wasn't, so they didn't get anything more than a few kills, a few shutdowns, which are always very, very welcome around these parts. But you win that team fight around the next Dragon, or, heaven forbid, around the next Baron in a few minutes' time. Jobs are good, and meanwhile, Synapse having a bit of a better time against Raider at this stage, but still having a bit of a rough
actually having a much better time, yeah.
Well, I mean, when he's got mates coming down, he'll be very, very happy because see another team fight in exactly the same position. Members of Monster Rugby hanging around in that Tribush do have control over the river. But X7 have committed all of their members to make sure that nothing goes awry. No one's going down as everyone starts moving back towards that mid lane, but there's still the opportunity for a team fight to kick off, and it will be the Rel who is called out. We'll be able to dive into the fight, and is taking down a really nice shockwave, but there's no follow-up to it. As Monster Rugby find the pick, move back towards the mid lane.
Okay, so with a minute left until the Dragon, Munster still have a chance to go corral the waves where they want to. Unfortunately, means that Royal for them will be up and ready to fight around the Dragon, but they did manage to force out a teleport on the bot side of the map. It means that that top lane not going to be answered to. It's still farm being left to the turret. It's a minor thing, but of course we've got to keep track of these minor advantages because Monster Rugby have been scrabbling to try and get their hands on a couple of them. Look how this happens. Look how this comp works from Munster on the approach to objectives. You're waiting for those Ruptures, you're waiting for those Ws, they land both of them in that case, and it is so deadly. Raider is now on the flank, trying to use his mobility on that slice and dice to get into the fight before he gets CC'd.
These are exactly what you were talking about earlier, getting the angles of the fight correct, and X7 in the past couple of cases haven't been able to do so. Dragon on the menu.
They have Cho'Gath.
Yeah, exactly. Remind me they have Cho'Gath ultimate, so smiting this one away, stealing it away is going to be much more difficult for X7. They kind of need to take the fight before the objective goes too low, or they need to prevent the objective being taken entirely. if they want to try and grab themselves the second infernal and deny the
Channel.
soul. Stand United has been used onto Goose times into the backline, but there's really not that much follow-up, and he's going to be taken really, really low. Kevin Man on the back giving a big
Raider.
old shield, but X7 doing so much better in this team fight this time around. Yes, Kevin Man will be able to escape. Royal on foot, nowhere near quick enough as sign-outs in the backline, looking towards Sin, who could look to get a couple more auto attacks to get the kill. Royal actually manages to get the kill for the ace onto Senna. And X7 confused about why they didn't win the last team fight. Very, very clear why they won this one.
I think actually this is on Munster not being patient enough. It is also expertly played from X7, looking at that dragon and saying, we are going to position for the pick. We're not going to start bursting down the dragon and allow you to start using something, give you the chance of that steal. They waited until Munster lost their nerve, went too close to random. Yes, they did use the Hecarim Shen combo. That's a great combo, but it doesn't end up stopping Raider getting into the fray of things. You go down perilously low, but has a Gore Drinker, has a Q, gets right back up in those HP numbers, and that's going to net them a Dragon, it's going to net them a Baron, it's probably going to net them the game at this rate, because this lead now is huge.
Absolutely, and as you said, the Hecarim Shed Ultimate combination can be so good, but so many members had already got into the fight. They were really only getting towards the Tristana, who... It's a Tristana, it's spooky, but Sin hasn't been the biggest factor so far in this game, because bot lane hasn't really been called to partake all that much so far. It's been about the top and the jungle, and a lot of people are saying at the moment that these two lanes are so crucial in the success of a team, alongside the supports as well. And we've spoken about these two players from X7 constantly going into this matchup, and constantly when they were going through the qualifications about how good individually they are. They chose a duo that works very well together, they made it work very well together, and now they're seeing the rewards for it.
That they are. And again, I know you're talking about bot lane not being so much of a factor. I do think Royal's combo in that last fight was absolutely gargantuan.
Very true.
Got so many members snarled up, and that allowed Raider to get right in there and get the maximum value out of that Gore Drinker, out of that Q. So all these pieces starting to work a little bit better together. I know we talked about the individuality of X7 in these fights, though, working pretty well as a unit.
Absolutely, and when you're playing well individually and playing well as a team, there's not really too many other areas that you can be playing badly in. And X7 passed a couple of shaky moments just after the third dragon. They've looked much the better team so far in this game. It's a best of 3 series reminder, so winning this one gives advantage, but not the win. And for X7, they're looking to close out and grab themselves that advantage as quickly as possible. On the top side, that inhibitor tower will be falling down. Goose has looked for the engage and will be able to find Shammy. Fought back into the fight and going to go very, very low. The Honorata is shut down, but a huge combination coming on through. It might not pick them up. Too many kills initially. And you can see Beartree on the side looking to get on to the Tristana. Will be able to do so, but it's traded 1-for-1. And now Goose trying to get away. Won't be able to do so under the tower.
The healing!
As much damage as possible. Silence has gone down. The ace, the base, the kill was going over to X7. And they'll pick themselves up the series alongside.
Beautiful combos from Munster Rugby Gaming. But then 10,000 gold down. X7 whack them with the wallets. They outplay under turrets. Yes, Shambi goes down. Yes, Sin goes down. I think they're more than happy with it, though, because they're taking the game.
And that'll be the first game of this best of 3 series going over to X7, having seen Resolve Academy already qualify for the UKEL. They want to prove that the open qualifying teams are a force to be reckoned with. Not actually looking to hold out for the Nexus itself. They're going to take the second inhibitor first. They're actually going to back away. Monster Rugby have been delivered a lifeline in this game, but nothing out on top of the Nexus.
How much of a lifeline is it, Will? How much is it? You are...
Their Nexus is still here.
2/3 of their Nexus is still there. It's taken a chunk out of it. That gave that one a new lick of pain. Kevinman does respawn. Beartree was up. Beartree flashed in to kill Sin in that last fight. That could have been the difference between the game ending then, and of course giving them a slightly, slightly less strong handhold on this game than they would like. But, okay, so now X7 get to back off, get to go back towards the map and spend that gold, and have another shot at that Nexus. I think they're feeling very happy about that last fight, though, because that went just about as well as it could have done for Munster Rugby, and then Royal turned around with a 4-man combo from the Rel. That was absolutely disgusting again. 2 fights in a row, this Rel has come up absolutely tops in the CC department from these team fights.
We'll have to see how X7 decide to close this one out. Is it going to be slow? Is it going to be quick? What's the game plan here? Scalpel or Sledgehammer? The end result is probably going to be the same in this game. but Monster Rugby still have a Nexus, still have 5 members on the Rift, and we've seen them win team fights in this series before. Can they do so again? You can see diving on in Raider takes a little bit of a beating and will back away, but he's able to zone the entirety of Monster Rugby's team.
If you don't have that amount of gold, that amount of CC, it leads to a dead Renex, and Raider just knows his limits at this point, though. 4-11, has himself 3.5 items. Monster Rugby just have to look at him. This fact that these skill shots, this CC, isn't about disengaging, it's about surviving now, is so important.
Engage is coming on in. This could be the last fight of the game. Raider diving on through, getting so much damage, so much healing. It's such a scary individual. Kenman on the backside, trying to put as much damage out as possible as X7 look to run rampant. Will be able to get the double kill for the Tristana and run on through. The inhibitor was focused, but there's no need to take it as Sin dives on forward, has the double buff, and will force Synapse back to Fountain. This time, no mistakes. X7 grabbing themselves the first win of this best of 3 series.
And in the question of Scalp versus Sledgehammer, I think they just use the Scalp, they use the Sledgehammer to the Scalp, so it's the Scalp hammer, and it absolutely crushes through the base of Monster Rugby. That last fight, it just went to show how far they had snowballed. That was the name of the game with this composition, and they pulled it off.
Absolutely, and they did exactly what we said they needed to do in theory when we were looking at the composition. We said, this is exactly how, this is best case scenario for this team. This is how they want to play the early game, this is how they transition, and this is how they win. And they pretty much, painted by numbers, did all those things. Yes, they lost a random team fight around a dragon. You know, it's kind of fine, it's whatever. It gave Monster Rugby a little bit of hope that in the end was dashed. But, I mean, you said 2-1 to X7 going into this one. Monster couldn't find anything in that game, really.
I might have to revise that one. That was crushing from X7. I think that a lot of that early game, it could have been approached in a better manner from Monster Rugby. Again, so often when you have dive combos top line, and we've seen so many of them this season. We've seen Camille Talir, we've seen again the Renekton with stuff like the Nidalee too. It doesn't tend to be the Elise, but of course coming out from here, from Anonymous, it looked terrifying. There has been a lot of talk about, well, how do you do that in terms of your draft? You don't always have to do things in the draft though. Sometimes you just need to get mid-priority and hover topside. That's not something which Bear Tree managed to do for the first couple of minutes of the game. They managed to pick up a kill onto the Shami when they turned back, but at that point you'd already lost 2 kills on your Shen. It was just too late into the game. I think Monster Rugby didn't quite handle the early game the way they wanted to. X7 just snapped it up.
It was a little bit too late for Monster Rugby trying to defend that top lane. They stayed a little bit long Synapse in the initial play, which saw them get first blooded, and in the end it was just a couple of meters too short in every department for Monster Rugby to win out in that first game. We're going to jump to a short break, but when we come back, we'll see if X7 can punch themselves a ticket to the UKEL next split, or if we'll get a free game series from Monster Rugby Gaming. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes. It's League of Legends time. Welcome back to the UKEL promotion series. I'm Viperoon, joined by Nightmare once again for our second game in this one. And X7 took the first one against Munster in a decisive fashion.
It's more than just took game one in a decisive fashion. There was no arguing with that. There was no brooking any kind of counterplay. They smashed through topside. It's a play that we've seen from this team so often. Not on the champions we'd expected. What does that mean? We are on the same sides. Munster Rugby, they're still banning away the Darius. Will they change anything else apart from that, though? I still think you got to ban away those champions.
Yeah, the Darius and Jax are by far and away Raiders' strongest champions, with Camille kind of being in that third place position. And because you're on red side, you have to ban Seraphine. Pretty much, if you don't want to be ruined. We saw the power of Karma earlier in the day, in that first series, and it's kind of the same kind of situation. So, have remained the same so far. We'll have to see if they consider, nope, it's just going to be the same old, which gives X7 the opportunity to go for their first priority, which is the Orianna.
And so the thing I would say about Munster's comp last game is that it would have worked so much more cleanly if they had early priority mid and they can use that to then protect topside. They had a Silas, doesn't necessarily get that versus the Orianna, not at that point of the game. Maybe if you have something which, locking in the Trist can help with that, with the flex between mid and bot, they can do whatever they want with that. Now, this is the first change we've seen from these drafts.
Yeah, not going to be able to give X7 the Tristana this time around, and a champion who's very, very capable of building that early pressure and making sure that priority is gained mid. We might see X7 going for a proxy pick here. We will see the proxy pick. That, was actually Rel once again. Anonymous needs to pick up that champion.
I mean, Royal had such a good game on that Rel. When it came down to those team fights, which were pivotal for Munster, because it seemed like, even though they were so far behind, if they did elongate long enough and they could start landing the CEC to keep the Renekton away from them, they could turn around some of those team fights. They lock in the Caitlyn against the Triss. You can now definitely go for something a lot more lane pressure and stop that Tristana being so powerful in a duo. But remember, it's still a flex. Munster could just say, actually, no, that Triss is going mid now. It's fine versus the Orianna. You can lock in something like the Varus to bot side if you really want.
Or could go in a completely different direction, and we'll be going for that Gragas, the powerful, flexible pick, and Munster Rugby not really giving up anything in terms of lane assignments. They might have picked up their bot lane, or they might have picked up 2 solo lanes.
That they could have done, or they could have picked up 1 solo lane and then also 1 bot lane. Could be absolutely anything. Going around to second round of bans, Munster Rugby again will have to look at what's happening with X7's top lane pool. Do you want to ban away? Yes, you do. You do want to ban away the Aurelia. And I'd imagine we might see the Camille ban as well, Will.
Shocker. And then we see the final rotation Relic to Elise, and then Synapse stands up from his keyboard, walks out into the sea, and never comes back. Because he's not going to be a fan of how that last laning assignment went. There was very little he could do initially, and then once you lose those couple of kills, the game is definitely over for you.
Yeah, it wasn't on Shen. That game wasn't, and as sad as it is, sometimes that's just competitive top lane. You look at that and just think, okay, that someone else had to be there to stave off the dive. It didn't happen, and things got really sad after that point. The Elise being bound away, though, that's a difference. Camille now open, something which now X7 could consider.
And it also leaves something like the Nidalee open if Anonymous wants to play in a similar kind of way, but less CC, more damage coming through on those top lane dives, or if they want to put Anonymous in a completely different position, because stuff like the Graves has been conspicuously absent, the Lilia as well. A lot of very powerful champions are available, but speaking of champions that are available, Ego's not one of those, I'm afraid.
Not in this one. So I think you shove Trist mid at this point, and I think you pick up something that can survive the Caitlyn just a bit better. And then you allow... No, they're not going to go for that. All right, okay, so they're actually going to flex that around. The reason I say that is because Gragas has a fine matchup into Camille. If you think that's going to be the matchup topside, you are still a nullifying topside pick. Now it's going to be secured into that support role. Sion is now going to be the top laner. Most likely, unless we've got weird... Well, we could still see Senna or Sion bot lane if you really want, but more than likely to be the Sion topside now.
That would be my guess. That would be the prediction. We'll have to see what X7 decide to put into it. They're going to be going with... That is... Right, this is a pick. We saw this one in the qualifiers from Raider. He goes for like a bit of a strange build path. It's not the E one. It's the going for the stacks, going for the farm, having a great time, and it was terrifying. So we'll have to see if that's going to happen again.
Okay, alright. We stacking in topside from Scion and from Nasus. Talia locked in, so you can put the Wither down on someone and it makes the combo easier to hit, but it's not like having a point-and-click stun like the Renekton or other top laners have. Now, Munster have one last chance to flex around their lanes, decide what they want to do. Trist Gragas is a fine lane. You can still put that Trist into mid lane if you want to have something with a better matchup versus the Caitlyn. Gonna have to lock it in now. They're going back to the Sylas.
It's now back to reality. Oh, there goes mid prior. As we've got the Sylas locked in again. I mean, it wasn't bad last game by any means, the Sylas in the mid lane, but it's not what we were necessarily looking for as an adaptation from Munster.
Now in this draft, it's less about playing patiently. It is more about finding the correct picks and brawling it out a little more, rather than waiting for Cho'Gath and Senna to land CC and then start bursting down the first target if they are held at arm's length. With the Sylas now having the Scion running into the fight, snarling up that middle ground, that no man's land within the 5v5s. Same with Gragas going in for big engages too. I think Sylas will have a better time.
And we're just going to run quickly back into Champ Select because there was one of those proxies once again, but we're pretty aware of where things are going. There are a couple of questions that need to be answered by Monster Rugby in terms of Gragas and Scion, because both can play both, but realistically you want the Scion on the top side and the Gragas down bot, because Scion without farm is quite a sad boy.
That he is. Now we're just going to go through the bans again, guys. So I was just looking up what Raider was doing in terms of build and stuff. And yes, of course, it is going to be that QMax, the stack, going towards the Divine Sunder into the tank, obviously. I'm not myself a Nasus player. It's a bit of a...
You're not a Nasus expert?
I'm not a Nasus expert.
Huh?
So, funnily enough, actually, my partner used to play a lot of Nasus, and occasionally I've talked about it, but I've never really put time into that champion myself. So I'm looking to be taught by Raider the ways of the dog champ.
This is, if you want a great example of a caster being exposed, go back to last weekend on X7's channel to watch the Champ Select analysis of why you should build Nasus in a certain way from Doctor, who was casting that series. He gave a really nuanced, good explanation.
Was this the E-push pressure top lane
Yes.
thing? Yeah.
He gave, he fully explained how that was meant to work and how it was going to win the game for X7. And then
he just
Raider was like, Q go bonk.
Q go bonk.
And he was just like, I'm just going to stack up. And then late game in team fights, he was free-showing people.
Okay,
And it was sick.
Alright, so one thing in this game is that there's going to be a point when it's going to be about side laning. Sylas and side lanes right now is strong, particularly when you've got... I think in this game, if you go towards your Cosmic Drive second and you try and have that Sylas versus the Nasus, it'd be really telling to see if Sylas can actually start battling the Nasus, trading Q for Ws and stuff like that. Given that it's Raider, wouldn't necessarily think that's going to go all too well, because I'd imagine if Raider's taking a trade, he absolutely knows how that's going to go, just because of how well he's been playing recently. But I do think that Sylas, on the current patch, having that really low cooldown on the Kingslayer, which his most broken ability, by the way, don't think it's his ultimate. His W is the thing which makes him relevant. It gives Munster maybe a side lane matchup they're happy with.
Potentially, but that is very much, as you say, depending on how the game goes up until that point, because the thing about Nasus that people don't necessarily consider is you think about him late game, and especially mid game, where he's absolutely terrifying, can get those 2 hits down on you and you die. So you think, right, so theoretically, Nasus is weaker in the early game. Nasus doesn't die in lane. His passive makes sure of that, alongside
Free life
being able to
steal.
wither and just wander off if you come anywhere near him as the Scion. Scion has a decent amount of damage early, but doesn't have massive amounts of kill pressure as a top laner into another tank. So Raider is going to have a really, really nice time top. I think this is going to be very different in terms of where we see the early action, though, because as you mentioned, Nasus Talia doesn't really have the same ring to it as Renekton at least does.
No. So for me, this is going to be, where is Anonymous going to be getting the most efficacy out of their time? Because if you can get an easy gang top, you absolutely go for it. Because looking at Nasus, one of the things which Nasus can struggle with is wave management. Because yes, you can farm at a turret, yes, you can set up freezes. Your wave push, if you don't have that Emax, which again was something you talked about the other day, it can allow you to control waves a little better. It does end up sacrificing your dueling potential. It does end up sacrificing some of that late game because your Q stacks are less easy to get in the early game because of it. So Anonymous might be happy to leave Raider on an island. It is all about that on-the-fly decision-making, though, of saying, actually, no, I can very quickly spend some time here and get some value out of it.
I'm really, really fascinated to how this game goes, because the team composition that X7 have built is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, with the high level of analysis, but it's a little bit all over the place in terms of what it wants to be doing.
That it is. So the question is then, of course, when do these things start pulling themselves together? Because you do still have teleports. You can still start having a tanky front line on the side of both of these teams, and then just try and outplay each other in the 5v5s. That's always going to be an option. The question is, of course, what flavor is that going to take? Because dragons start changing things quite a lot. If you're forced to start... dragons start changing the way that these teams play around things, because again, you've got a Trist who does, if they do get lane priority, ends up moving around the map and starts destroying towers very well. But Caitlyn has been doing that for so long. This is kind of what these champions both do. They'll be battling for priority on that bot side.
I don't love X7's bot lane, honestly. And this is something that last game I was really, really excited about. We both were, in terms of this is one of the, if not the most aggressive bot lane you could have without saying the words Lucian Brawl. Because, or Zaya Rakan as well, I guess, technically. Because you've got so much follow through and both of your champions really want to be aggressively diving forward. This time around, yeah, Rel wants to be aggressively diving forward, but Caitlyn really doesn't. And yes, Rel still has exceptional disengage, but can X7 play that style of play as effectively as they played the more aggressive style?
It's a very good question, because, I mean, you can still play around stun into trap, right? That's one you play around with that, Caitlyn. Particularly when you're playing Rel into stuff like Alistar, Gragas, which can cancel your crash down. For me, it's then more imperative to see how you use your mount up, which is your like unmounted into mounted form, and you have that flip over the shoulder. That for me becomes a lot more important, because that one you can't cancel out, and that's something which is you'll see the better Rel players making the most, taking the best trades with. Actually, interesting thing here, we now have the switch of Sion into Bear Tree's hands and Synapse taking the Silas. There's a chance this is actually a role swap. We do have, of course, the Sion still going top, but I'd imagine it's actually just going to be Silas top and Sion mid.
Well, with Bear Tree, and this is where you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, people of the chat. Bear Tree was a top lane.
I wouldn't trust chat. They made me
in
look
the
outside
UKLC
my window.
days.
I was duped. I was.
Dude, chat has its way with words that no one else will. But Bear Tree was a top laner back in the day, or there was a top laner named Bear Tree who did exceptionally well in the old UKLC. That was UKLC where it went into
this is
European
the same player.
Masters. So why is Bear Tree mid? Is my question. If they have just because they can just swap Bear Tree top, put Synapse mid, and you have the same matchup in the mid lane as we saw last game, and we'll have to see if Synapse can do better in that one into Shami's Orianna. Or you could have Bear Tree playing the San, a champion that we know he likes playing a lot back from those days, where San was one of those champions that you saw.
Yes, we have the UKLC historian right here in Viperine. Because obviously I cast Bear Tree this split in UKEL in the varsity for the Essex University team, and they were playing mid lane while their usual mid laner Influentic kind of flexed around the place. Bear Tree played a bit of mid, played a bit of jungle. Trying to remember if they actually played any top lane. But one of the things that team was saying when I was going to them for information for my cast over there was, well, you know, who you're relying on these teams. Oh yeah, Bear Tree's really good. He's an ex-UKLC player. We absolutely put our trust in him. So Bear Tree's had some experience flexing around various roles in some competitive settings. Yes, it's new. It's not always the same level as the UKEL, but you do get still that same kind of high pressure scenario playing against some very talented players. And now with, of course, the proving grounds or the scouting grounds between the UKLC and the university scene being announced, a lot of those players are now going to be eyeing up this level of competition, saying, all right, actually in half a year, in a year when we've kind of had that experience coming through, those similar kind of players from UKEL, which the likes of Bear Tree have experience again, might be showing up in the UKEL.
And this is kind of full circle for Bear Tree, in that when he was in the UKLC, he was on Phelan, which was the Irish organisation that was in that league. And we're not going to go into the great saga of you should pay your players, but again, he's on this Irish roster, coming up against X7, and he's a very, very good player. Last game, he looked fine, but they also lost really, really hard. We'll have to see exactly where this Sarn ends up and if the Sarn can be the effective point. Because what Monster have done here, and I'm coming over to the actual narrative of the whole broadcast now. It only took me a game to get there.
Oh no, you could just read audiobooks to me, dude. At this point, it's fine.
Oh, dude. Well, let me tell you about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Number 4, Privet Drive. I'm not Stephen Fry. I wish I could be, but we'll never get to quite that level.
That and Tony Robinson's Discworld audiobooks. That was my childhood right there.
Absolutely, the dulcet tones. But Monster Rugby have a really nice combination now of experienced players who have been at the top level and fresher Irish talent that has proven throughout this split that A, they need some work, but B, that they can do it individually when the time calls for it. They only found this in relegation, though. And the question being, is it enough to get them out of relegation? But if it is enough to get them out of relegation, considering they've got another opportunity if they lose out in this series 2-0, which, spoiler alert, I predict they will, because X7 are absolutely, abjectly terrifying.
Pretty good.
When you've got a coach like Viperoon behind the scenes, you know, you're going to be a really good organisation.
I'd hire Viperoon for my team. I don't have a team, but if I did, there you go. That'll be it.
I could definitely coach a team that doesn't exist. That is the exact kind of team that you'd want me behind the scenes.
You have to let me know how your imaginary results go, dude.
Oh, well, there's tough games in the imaginary UKEL, but we can...
This is sounding more and more like a Flight the Conchords song. We're getting towards those levels.
We're also getting towards the Rift for our second game of the series. Of course, we had a 2-0 win for Resolve Academy. Just earlier today, they'll be going into the UKEL. Mythos have another opportunity against the loser of this series. And that'll be tomorrow at 12 PM. For those of you looking for your UK League of Legends fix. But right now, Monster Rugby need a win here in order to tie up this series and try and fight their way back into the UKEL. But for X7, one more will be all it takes to play in the greatest league in the UK. Asterisk. Don't tell DreamHack I said that.
Hey, Will, I think Heavenman's Mastery 7 on Tristana. I think I saw an emote. This guy's good.
I mean,
wow, is that the Mastery 7 Tristana? I'm in awe.
Look at that monolith of a man, Keverman, on Mastery 7 Tristana. Is he an esports athlete?
Good luck.
He could be a model.
Don't you do this again.
I don't know, they can't be faster. If you want Twitch chat, just like audiobook readings, you need Doctor for that. I am not the man for the job, but
UKEL Promotion Relegations Chapter 2 X7 versus Munster Rugby Gaming.
Chapter 2, I sure hope that Synapse doesn't get bullied as hard this game because
what are the genres of this audiobook? Is it a horror story for Shen?
It depends. It depends who you're rooting for. So
it's if choose your own adventure book, I love those.
Oh, it's like it's like Goosebumps. You know the Goosebumps choose your own like adventure ones where like every other page will be like you died, unlucky.
I mean, we started off the UKEL split when, of course, it came into cast with a great many jokes about, the trials of Heracles and going very close to Percy Jackson. I like that we again have come full story, of course, full circle. Although X7 are making to look this game a little similar to the first, though not looking to have any unexpected plot twists.
No, they'd hope not. They want to be business as usual in this one. But it's going to have to be business as usual in a very, very different way. Just because the way that they won last game was top and jungle, let's go snowball, let's win everything. You can already see that Talia spent more time on the bot side of the map this game.
The entirety at least did in the first game, yes.
Yeah, pretty much the entirety of last game because she was glued to Raider in the top side and Nasus doesn't need a jungler glued to him and Talia isn't really the one to catch out of Silas in that way.
No, not necessarily. So, it's been a long time since we've seen Sion mid. We've seen stuff like Set mid, which can kind of be tanky, not give up kill pressure, and then just kind of push out a wave with their base damage and build tanky, and then just roam across the map. This isn't going to be Banner of Command. That's been removed for a great many years, and thank God for that, because that item was horrible to play against as a mid laner. Shammy should not really be here, but Anonymous had a quick recall. I don't think he's been spotted out here.
Yeah, Goose is going to be chased away, has to pop Ghost. Bear Tree wanders up, and there is a bit of support from the top lane, but it's going to be Raider who has the inside track, and a lot of resources being used to make sure that Rift Scuttle goes the correct direction, and Sin actually going to pick up the other one. Goose is going to find him already buried under the ground, and X7 grab themselves a double Scuttle.
That is super annoying. Playing against Alistair, Rel, you immobilize that Scuttle, meaning that you get, well, with short cooldowns you don't really care to use, care about using, rather. It means that you take away that shield from the Scuttle, and your AD carry gets to just take down that Scuttle very quickly if you have that lane priority. So, X7 get themselves, they manufacture that double Scuttle. Goose isn't going to run into the enemy jungle, not going to steal away Krugs or Raptors or anything like that. X7 walk away with an early jungle lead.
And Raider teleports back into lane with an early Sheen, so looking to try and get a bit of damage out onto Synapse in the top side, but Synapse has yet to be tower dove and killed, so I count this as an absolute win.
You can see what Synapse is trying to do. He's trying to build up a wave stack right here. I think what he's trying to do is maybe set up for an eventual dive because Hecarim is on top side. That's what you do. If you're not fast pushing out this wave, you're just buying time to allow those minions to reach that tower in a huge horde of little caped figures. So Synapse now sat here using his cooldown sparingly, not trying to get that chain lash through the wave, not trying to trade too heavily either. Raider should surely sniff this coming though.
Yeah, Raider throwing down that E, trying to thin the wave a little bit, deny the massive amount of minions that would shield the dive and give the best opportunity for Monster to pick something up from it. And it's difficult, as you say, for Raider to fully control the minion waves early doors because you're not able to shove in with that E if you haven't really leveled it. Synapse actually going in aggressively, has that corrupting pot rolling as Raider is looking to trade back the Wither as well, and Synapse a little bit worse wear after that exchange.
1Q kills him here, because now the problem is, Synapse, dude, you are literally 1Q away. Flash Q and that's it. You don't get to cancel that at all. Dude! Just W! You have to W. You have to just buffer it onto Nasus. As soon as Raider comes towards you, you have to get that animation off. Looks like he went for the Abscond Abduct instead. Doesn't pull it off. Flash Q, Raider just bops him over the head. That's plus 12, baby.
And in the first game, you could say that it wasn't Raider's fault what happened to him top. Just then, absolutely, was the fault of Synapse for what happened. Raider flashing forward, grabbing a couple more stacks, and now
this is insult to injury.
Teleported in, and it goes from bad to worse for the top laner of Monster Rugby. Actually, Anonymous not going to drag him back in with the shove.
Maybe didn't have that one on cooldown, but I'd imagine he did. It's not like he just took Scuttle, and those top lane camps are still available. Maybe just didn't want to go for it, and get himself flashed onto or dodged away from another sensor. Okay, Monster, you've lost yourself a kill on that top side, but it's not quite as bad as game 1. Where are you playing around now? Bot lane has a cull for X7, has a CS lead for X7. Seems like they're comfortable with the state of play too. So Monster Rugby, what are you playing around? Is this going to be a big play bot side as Bear Tree does end up using that infamous Scion that they have their hands on to make a play bot side, but X7, they sniff it out. They're playing defensive on bot side. They're not going to lose much for this.
Yeah, giving respect, they will lose a minion wave and they will lose a couple of plates on this tower because Tristana is pretty capable of shoving in and getting damage onto it. Actually only going to lose 1.5 plates as Kevman forced to back away, and now that Hecarim has left the area, Sin and Royal can move back in to take up defensive positions. A little bit more action on the bot side than we saw last game as well, but even with that big shove and the minions being denied, farm is still even down there.
There it is. So, at least Monster Rugby gained something for their time, because Bear Tree had already pushed out, and Goose was around that side of the map. Anyway, he doesn't get any camp steals off, I don't think, but then he does manage to get down here, using that momentary lapse impression in the bot lane, because they have to back off for away from that tower to get themselves Dragon. So the Cloud Dragon away early, that means it's away from X7 as well. And the next dragon on the map, well, Bear Tree is going to steal away. Yes, okay, Bear Tree is the jungler now. Goose cares more for the dragons. Bear Tree wants to deny Anonymous something. And Goose might actually end up fighting. You might end up fighting around this rubber. Seriously, would advise him against it, though.
Yeah, and you can see Royal and Sid just making sure that there's no scrapping going on. But Raisins, if you're buying, I'm in, looking to get the barrel down and not going to be able to steal away, even though I saw it on 17 hit points.
The instant Q pop would have actually taken it. That is so close. Anyway, just trying to force an error. Looks actually the bomb is going to take another plate, so it is going to be the full 2 plates after the 1.5 were taken earlier. Synapse on the top side, pushing in. That means that Herald may be available for Monster Rugby if they were going to rotate some members around, because they do have top lane and mid prio right now. But they're not really in the same area of the map to go for that right now.
So that's just going back to that top side wave. Had given up first blood, but staying even on farm and being able to stand much more aggressively than he was this time last game. Goose going to be clearing out the jungle as well, but a much slower start. But with the way that X7 have built their roster, they'll be pretty pleased with things not being as speedy as they were last time.
Exactly. I mean, X7 on the snowball comp this time. Munster probably have the more of the early available options. They lost that first kill, sadly, in that top lane. But you're looking at how Sion can shove and roam, use that ultimate, get across the map very quickly. Munster Rugby do have the ability to make early plays happen. They've not really found those openings yet, though. And now we've had a bit of a flip-flop in terms of the pressure on top side. X7 are going to take themselves that Herald. Ow.
They're just going to be scrapping with Synapse. A bit of damage being traded both ways, but Goose riding on through. We'll get the damage out. Royal getting the kill onto Royal on the bot side as well. Teleport coming on through from X7. You can see Anonymous diving on it in as well. The dog does go down eventually, but the damage coming through. Nice dodge from Synapse away from the shockwave.
Oh,
actually going to walk away as well. Anonymous with the blue suede shoes will be able to get away. Keverman picks up a double off screen though, as Monster Rugby survive top, make gains bot.
I mean, Talia, Anonymous, plays Toreador with Bear Tree flashing over the unstoppable onslaught. If it's unstoppable, well, best not get hit by it. A bit more of the raging bulls on the bot side, though. Monster Rugby pick themselves 2 kills up for their Tristana, pick up another 2 plays. Monster Rugby, alright, they are well and alive in this series.
Well and alive in this game. 2,000 gold lead at the 10-minute mark. Absolutely sensational stuff. X7 weren't even able to pick up that Rift Herald as they tried to rotate and save Raider on the top side, which they failed to do. A kill going over to Hecarim, double onto Keverman, as we mentioned. Now it's going to be Monster Rugby Gaming who move up into the river in numbers to potentially try and grab themselves this Rift Herald and the plate gold that it will probably give up as well, but...
they are more interested in this Nasus.
Oh, Raider needs to step away. Should be able to do so, taking a little bit of damage, but no knock-up, no slow from the Scion. They're looking to push in. Anonymous hanging around in that tri-bush, looking to just shield from any potential dives. Doesn't have the ultimate available, so no wall can go up, but... looks like X7 a little bit more wary on this top side after that last play.
I think they have to be at this point, given that Beartree is just running through the mid lane waves and then using that priority again, as we said, that old Scion used to be able to do with the items available to them, and make themselves a force on this map. No, he doesn't have the ult right now, but he's just first at every play, and that's dangerous. Synapse now looking to, again, face off against Raider. And you can see what can happen with the Silas versus the Nasus. If you end up spacing correctly, getting in range for that second W, then Silas probably wins the trade. If you get 2 Qs and avoid the second W, though, by just using your range disparity on the extra auto attacks and stuff like that from Raider, if you use the Wither for the slow, then probably the Nasus ends up winning out. As it stands, even-ish in CS, but those stacks keep coming for the Nasus.
And Nasus, as we say, he's going to be an absolute monster in the mid game if he can continue stacking up, continue getting that damage, and Synapse might just be one big stack as Raider picks up another.
Plus 12, it's another kill with the Q. Oh, Synapse can be top, but the drift is a little too late.
But the fight is continuing.
Oh, maybe not to Anonymous, though.
Will be taken down with the onslaught of shadows. Decent amount of damage coming through from Raisins and Goose as they even up the trade top 1-for-1.
Luckily, Wave is at tower for X7 on the other side of things, so they can't dive Raider. Kevin, though, doesn't care about any sorts of dives, rather just destroy the structure itself. Does get the first tower of the game onto the Tristana. 5 plates fully down, and the Herald now in inventory of Monster Rugby still yet to be used. Goose could put that somewhere down. Of course, to get even more plate gold for the side of Monster Rugby, they're ahead about to, well, almost 3,000 gold at this point. And they're going to use the early gains to get themselves another dragon.
Well, it should be taken pretty easily. Royal was in the area, but Rel alone is not going to stop a dragon take from multiple members of Monster. And just before things started heating up, you said yourself, Monster Rugby probably the team that looks to be on the beatdown this time around, and X7 going to be the more passive of the two, and it's working out really, really well for Monster. They picked themselves up a good gold lead for this stage of the game, 2 dragons as well, and we're being an Ocean Soul to boot. One that they're really going to enjoy picking up.
Yay! I get to say something that makes sense for once. I like it when that happens. So, Ocean Soul, once again on the table on Summoner's Rift. Actually, I can't even remember what was on the table. It was Infernal, actually, last time. That was it. Yeah, cool. I'm glad I remembered dragons as well. Monster Rugby, though, have themselves 2 dragons up. They get themselves a 3rd, and suddenly that's a really big problem for X7, because particularly when you do have a Nasus who wants to be taking extended trades, if you're not able to win out the elongated trades at that point because of the Soul coming through, and you are bursty, yes, but are you bursty enough to outlast the Soul? I don't think so with Monster Rugby coming up to this lead.
And these are the questions of, now we've got the tables have turned. They're reversed from last game, albeit a little bit less extreme, i.e. the composition of Monster is a little bit less reliant on being on the beatdown, having that early advantage, and the lead is not as significant as it was last game. But can X7 weather the storm more effectively than Monster Rugby could last time around?
That is the question. They don't have quite the same level of disengage and you know, keep at arm's length that the Senna Cho'Gath did from Munster last game. But they don't have to face down an incredibly scary pick comp with the likes of the Elise and the Renekton popping off. They do, however, need to be very wary that you have Goose, the primary diver, who is ahead. They're going to be doing more damage. They're going for the Triforce as well, from the looks of it, because that Hearthbound Axe is an inventory. None of that Chem Tank nonsense. And of course, Kevman, the primary DPS from Monster Rugby outside of that Hecarim, is also very much online with UKEL's name as well.
No power plates taken from that Rift Herald is a little bit of solace to X7 as they do lose their mid lane tower to the charge. Second of the game for Monster Rugby Gaming, but not an investment banking Rift Herald this time, more of a battering ram as Raider might be overextended. Members of Monster Rugby are moving up, but with that tower still standing. Raider a little bit safer, but Monster looking for a dive. Might need to be a little bit careful because Royal and Anonymous hanging around. We're going to make it a fair fight if it does kick off, but X7 actually respectfully going to be backing away themselves.
So, at least denying Raider something on this top side, because this wave will be dying to turret. Well, no, he's actually just going to recall. Looks like the vision gain from X7, and particularly the roam of Royal, even though they've struggled in lane, managing to protect their top lane, is going to deny X7, oh, sorry, deny Monster Rugby that dive onto top side, or the taking of the tower itself.
Let's take stock of exactly where we are in this game. 16 minutes in, 2,000 gold lead for Monster Rugby, which isn't the largest it has been this game, but it's significantly better than where they were in the last game in this series. Of course, best of 3 series does mean that X7 just need to win one more to grab themselves a position in UKEL. Monster Rugby needs to do it back-to-back double this game and next. But they're in a nice position to do so far in this game. X7, what do they want to be doing in order to try and keep themselves in this one and come back in this game?
So I think they're already doing part of where this starts off well, right? Shielding the weak side of the map from the worst case scenario, making sure the Raider can get some farm. He has a lot of stacks. Bear Tree, similarly, on the other side, actually taking a lot of Raptors away, because Scion's W passive is dependent on the amount of units you kill. Killing Raptors is a really good way to get yourself very tanky, almost at 3,000 health already at this point. But for X7, going back again from their perspective, you already have your first item onto Nasus. If you get to the point where you can use that side lane pressure to lead to Monster Rugby having to respond to something rather than taking a dragon, that's where the game plan really starts coming together for X7.
They could well be on target to do just that. Raider doing a bit of damage down onto Synapse, but Synapse isn't really in that much danger until Anonymous will slide on through on the back of that wave. Trying to get the damage down, won't be able to do so. The dive is in full effect now. Raider needs to be careful. Actually queuing the tower. Disaster there as Nasus will be able to claw his way away. Caitlyn will not do enough damage just yet, and once again Synapse with a sliver of health manages to make his way to safety. You can see Bear Tree has moved up to defend the tower, but X7 so close to another big pick, but just can't find it.
And yeah, reaction timing on point from Synapse, and not quite the execution you need from X7 in that dive. Has himself the stolen Nasus ult and gives him enough HP to get out from that play alive. Has the Everfrost built up on his back too, so if you go for another dive of a similar nature, be prepared for that extra bit of CC to come through. Synapse, after that early awkward play, coming up with a couple of big ones.
Now X7 moving down towards this Dragon Watch, picking up one for themselves. First of all, the game, if they can secure it, but Monster Rugby moving into the neighborhood. Has Synapse Moving down towards that ramp, we're going to see the Rift Herald fall on the other side of the map. So will be a trade 1-for-1 as Sion running on through. Anonymous needs to flash away, not to be caught out by the ultimate. And Synapse's Everfrost as well. They will be able to make their excuses and escape, but a trade is worse than taking the Dragon for free.
Yeah. Anonymous not to be picked off just yet. Does end up getting out of that Everfrost. That could happen. Very awkward. The side of X7 if Battery had just come slamming in like the freight train he is with that ultimate. And again, I do want to praise Bear Tree. I know you were talking about the history that this player has on this champion. He's making actually a decent impact of it. He's not been a silent tank mid. He's ended up getting across the map and making his impact known. Whereas Shammy, once again, kind of been on the back foot in the early game. Although when we saw those shockwaves come across in team fights later into the game, that was something to behold from X7. Maybe they're just waiting for that this time.
They might just be looking for the opportunity to strike as the Rift Herald strikes top and takes down all of the outer towers that X7 had at the beginning of this game. So X7 in trouble and decent shockwave, but only catching Bear Tree and the Rift Herald, and neither of those are particularly valuable targets. The Rift Herald is taken out before a second charge. The members of Monster hanging around in the wings. There's going to be no follow-up and no kills taken by X7 in this play.
No, so Shockwave used to clear out the wave. I think that's fine. If you end up letting that Herald get a charge onto the tower, there's a chance that using that pressure and then the Herald dying to tower allows Munster to move towards mid instead while the Orianna is caught under tower trying to wave clear. Synapse now stacking up a wave on this bot side. This is kind of what you have to do versus the Nasus. You don't really get the ability to just shove waves into him for free like you do against several other champions. You want to deny him, you want to force him to come out onto the map and then punish him when he does so.
So our damage going on to Raisin from Anonymous, but won't be able to find too much else. The ace in the hole is thrown on through, but Goose is going to block that one out. Wants to lose their flanking options, or half health bar of their flanking options, forcing Gragas and Hecarim to back away. And it will put a little bit of pressure on Asar, and also forced to run out of dodge and get himself to safety.
Close range stuff. Yeah, just on the edge of that. On the knockback from the Talia. I remember the Unraveled Earth. I remember the
seismic shove.
Seismic shove. Crap. It's all of those. Yeah. Thank you, production. Well, I'm glad one of us knows what it is now. It's an educational stream too. Monster Rugby though, they have themselves. They don't have to fight over anything until their ultimates are up. They're the ones deciding the tempo of this game. Should they force away the shockwave under that top lane tower? They lose the Sion ult, but I don't think they really care for it. Again, it's going to be another set of Raptors taken for the Sion getting tanky and tankier from that W passive. Monster Rugby, again, they're just controlling the tempo of this game right now.
And they're doing so pretty well, it must be said. They have themselves a bit of a lead in a fight in the bot side. Raider has used the ultimate, will be knocked back into the fight away from his tower, will be taken down. Kevman picking up that one. Nice shockwave and the teleport coming on through as well. But Shammy needs to be very careful, puts up the shield onto himself. But there's the onslaught of shadows, damage coming down. And X7 being rinsed under their own towers will all survive in the end. But Monster Rugby not going to lose anyone themselves. It's a 1-for-0 trade on the bot side of the map, but Monster Rugby can continue to siege.
Yeah, I love what Monster have been doing with stacking up waves, making sure that they have time to get every piece into position, and then executing on the dives. When you get to the inner turrets, it's much harder to pull people around the map because the distance between those towers is just much shorter than the outer ones. That means that they had to take that extra time to set up the map and get themselves into position, and they've done that well so far. Question is, what does that lead to? Of course, there's stuff like the Baron up. That's a great way to force the hand of the enemy team. I'm not sure they're really feeling confident enough, though, to go towards that right now.
I don't think Monster Rugby really want to make a play that big and that risky right now, just because, yes, they've got a decent lead, 4,500 gold at the 22-minute mark, nothing to turn your nose up at. But a big, tight team fight from X7 into taking an objective would be disastrous. But it does look like Monster Rugby are happy to start this one up. There's no one in the neighborhood to even contest from X7 right now, and it's going to go down very, very quickly. You've got Tristana, you've got Hecarim, you've got Silas, who can all rinse through these neutral objectives. Anonymous coming on through, will be called out by Razors and Beartree, who are playing Bouncer. Nice ultimate going into the Talia. The smite is gone as Beartree picks up the kill. The Baron is gone as it is secured, and now the fight is going to be kicking off in earnest. Razors can't get involved as they're looking to get the damage down on to Raiding. Stays alive though. The shutdown from Caitlyn, who is completely untouched. Synapse is going to be chased away as well. Double kill for Sin as he's looking towards Beartree. He will be able to flash down and will stumble his way onto towers. But the Dragon should go over to X7. Baron secured by Monster, but only on their bot side.
But at what cost? You do end up taking out Anonymous. Good pick at the start of that fight, but Kevinman gets chunked by Shammy, tries to go for a jump play with the bomb, but gets taken out of the fight. Once the Tristan's out of the fight, well, Nasus has a much larger margin of error to play around things. Royal provides the CC, pins him in place while those Qs keep hammering through. Raider finally becomes relevant in one of these fights.
And not only Raider, but Sin also turning up in a big way, putting down the damage on the side as well. But Mazda do have the Baron as an option, and if they can stick together, they can push these waves in. It's going to be kind of difficult for X7 to truly deal with them, with only a Kaylin, Orianna, and Nasus as well doing some wave clear. But Monster Rugby very much in the diving seat, but a little stumble around that objective.
The question is, how much can you afford to stumble? Because you are against that Nasus again, and we'll keep talking about that. But what we just saw there is that if Tristan isn't wailing on the Nasus, what happens? Well, you tend to lose that fight. So now this really puts extra emphasis on Kevinman to keep themselves safe. And on the other side, if you pick off Kevinman or he's out of position, things are not looking quite so confident for the side of Monster Rugby. They still have themselves some Baron buffs. They need to regain their composure. They need to see if they can force some dives across the map, because that's how they were getting so successful before. We'll have to see what happens in the next few minutes.
X7 need to hold for the next few minutes with this Baron buff being used to shove into them. This top lane inner tower could well be forfeit. Shammy, the only one in that lane, trying to catch out Raisins, but he's able to belly bop away. And the tower will collapse. So Monster Rugby have picked themselves up some objectives, created some debris with this Baron, and now they're moving back towards this mid lane. You can see Nasus Raider in the bot side, no teleport available, so won't be able to get back if a fight is started, a trigger is pulled, but X7 looking to set up defensive positions and just weather the storm for now.
So what Munster were kind of in the process of doing, and they're continuing it now, is they kind of flow through all three lanes. Top, push in, mid, push in, bot, see if you can finally punish. Because if there is someone responding to the wave clear and having to kind of stay in another lane, that's how you create a numbers disadvantage. They don't quite manage to pull that off in that case. They stuck a little too long in that mid lane, didn't quite see the opportunity to force things through. Gonna see Synapse once again stealing the Nasus ult, makes him so much more tankier, allows him to survive through to another round of cooldowns. Importantly, that W. Monster Rugby, they're gonna time out that Baron buff pretty much right now, actually, from the looks of it on that. It goes off there. They managed to get something from it, but this is no means a game-breaking advantage of gold for Munster.
Not at all. They need to play this game correctly in order to win it, but they put themselves in a very nice position to do so. They're still, as we said, in the driving seat. It's still on them. The burden of execution is on them in order to finish out the game, but X7 also need to be on form to keep themselves in this one. Best of 3 series, X7 took the first game. Right now, Monster Rugby looking the favourite of the two, even up this series.
That's fair to say. We have a Randrin's Omen coming in from Battery. So Battery is going to slam into the backline, put on the Randrins, and say, right, well, good job running away from me. It's not going to be the Frostfire Gauntlet in terms of that slow field coming down, but it's still area control. Battery is still going to be hilariously tanky, given the amount of farm and resources this Scion has got. And then again, the question becomes, alright, you've got two tanks doing... Well, I mean, one of them's not looking in such a good position.
That might have been caught out. He gets his ultimate down, but it's Kevinman doing so much damage. The Nasus forced to ult and wander away. Will be able to do so. If not in the offing right now, but X7 forced to lose out with their top laner. And the push will continue. Baron off the cards now, though. Which does mean that the push is going to be weaker from Monster Rugby.
That is, you don't have Grag Assault now, that's important. You do have Scion ult, you can still die very effectively with that tank. You don't have Nasus Assault. I actually wonder if Monster Rugby should look to force a play here and try and see if Raider has to teleport in without the ult and then pop him on the return. Not confident going under tower to do so at this point, though. They're just going to control a little more of the vision on the bot side of the map, and the game goes on.
Dragon up in a minute, Baron up in just over a minute. We could see... Close. Well, it's very close, and almost can't catch out the stop of the back, but we're going to see a couple of objectives. There could be a handshake, there could be a fight, and for Monster, you've got to favour them if there is an engagement right now.
I think you have to for now, yeah, because we looked at how quickly Raider got burst down whenever Kevin was in the fight. If this is truly a front-to-back, Munster Rugby have the advantage. Of course, you do have that Leandries and the Void Staff built up for Shami, not stopped off for the Seraphs. It's going to be straight into that early item spike of the Void Staff for that burst. Question is, if that doesn't cap Kevin, man, what happens? Most likely, you lose.
And yeah, exactly. We talked a little bit last game about how teams want to be playing the fights. And this game, it's very easy for X7. Kevin Man dead, you win fight. Kevin Man alive, you lose fight, realistically. Unless you can very well zone Kevin Man away from
I
the
knew it was going to be... He flashed the Mastery 7, and that was it, honestly.
Yeah,
At that point, we just knew Kevin Man was going to be the star player.
Dragon won't be the position of the next fight, as it is just going to be freely given over to Monster Rugby Gaming, setting themselves up for Soul in 5 minutes' time. X7, only 2 dragons in their pocket.
Oh,
Really
flash!
nice catch out onto Anonymous. He's going to have to go in the middle of the fight. Nice re-engage from
Royal.
Royal. His Raider looks to run through the fight, but they've already lost Rel, and now Nasus will be the target. He managed to get on top of Razors, but he's not the important member. Kevman completely untouched in the side, though. Synapse goes down, but so does Talia. Raider manages to get the Q down onto Tristana, and the damage is huge. Somewhere X7 find the damage. Somewhere they find the fight. And will chase members of Munster to the hills. Beartree stumbles away, but no idea how Raider pulled that one out.
I feel it. An impulse. A feeling, yet inescapable whim. He just channels the W, he puts it into melee range of Raider, and Kevinman goes down, just getting completely bopped by X7's top laner.
Goose has smite, and well, Goose has smite in theory, not currently up, but there's no smiters for X7. Yeah, Nasus can do a decent amount of damage with a Q, but it's not going to be able to deal
Goose
with
doesn't have
Hecarim.
ult. He can't
No
even get
ultimate,
across
though.
You can't even get across the pit unless this spawns, that's the blast plant spawns. They're leashing it yet again. He sees it alive, he's charging up the E. He might get closer towards it, but I don't think you're getting in there, dude.
I don't know, Razors can get in there, but Anonymous has come for us to put down the wall because he blocked himself on the wrong side of it, and will look towards the smite. Will be able to secure the Baron buff this time for X7 as a fight might kick off. X7 really do not want this one, but Beartree really doesn't get the knock up, but will be able to find the slow onto a couple of members. X7 running for the hills, and it looks like Munster are going to be chasing them heather and leather, looking for a little bit more. Won't be able to find anything though. As
Goose
X7
has ult, he could go for a big engage here.
Ooh, Goose could look for it, but decides to back away. And it will be X7 getting Baron with 5 members.
And they do stick the landing on it. They don't lose anyone, and they get to recall with all of the gold from the Baron kill as well. Seems like X7 have managed to stall out this game. Yes, it has been a slower one, not so many kills. Munster Rugby continually clearing through those jungle camps, but they haven't got themselves, you know, the soul. They do have soul point, and they didn't quite manage to break the base. So X7 are still in a playable position in this game. More than playable. I think they're back into it, of course.
Yeah, 4,000 gold down still, and of course there is the looming threat of that Dragon Soul in 2.5 minutes time, but they've got Baron buff right now, and it's going to be on them to start taking down some towers. They haven't grabbed themselves any so far in this game. It's going to be a right demolition job for them in the next couple of minutes to try and grab as much territory as they can. Beartree can't grab himself any CC on top of Anonymous though. He's going to be forced to back away. Kevman takes an ace to the face. Will be able to jump away. We can see a fight under this tower that goes down.
I'm sure you want him
before
close
it
to
kicks
your
off.
team right there.
Delivering Raider into the back line, but he's not going to be able to find anything. It looks like the siege will just continue for now.
Silas is on the flank. He's deep in the river, not trying to walk over enemy vision. Kevaman is the person we need to look for. That's a Talia ult to just go away. Well, it's Shockwave landing as well.
Only onto Raisins though, and it doesn't do enough damage to really scare him. He's able to back away, so a couple of big tools have just been used by X7 to grab themselves the inner tower, and are now rotating towards the bot side, but the outer tower is still standing. The wave is nowhere near X7, and sidewave management not been on the cards so much this game. They haven't been in a position to do so. Now it's going to slow down their ability to take objectives, and we'll drag it up in a minute and a half. Every second counts.
But it does. So they do take away a couple of jungle camps. Of course, Synapse takes away the blue buff, so that's not going to be available. They do just get themselves some minimal advantages for that. They get 2 towers after having none so far in the entire game. That's good standing gold. Whenever you have been behind in a game, particularly on structures, you get the Baron buff. That often tends to happen, so you've got a deluge of coinage coming in for X7. You get to reset, get to use that, and if they already won a fight, given when they were so far behind, now they are getting closer and closer towards even. And actually, at this point, with only 2,000 to 3,000 gold at 33 minutes, I would about call that as good as even. X7 should be looking to take fights on even footing.
But can they execute on these fights? These are the questions that we have to ask, because in this series, Monster Rugby have looked closest to X7 in terms of ability when it comes to fighting. It was the only place where they could really stand toe-to-toe at any stage during the last game, and this game is where they've gained advantages. Baron buff has fallen off now, so the advantage that was gained by X7 for doing so, just 2 towers and a little bit of anti-siege, buying themselves a little bit of time, but in the mid lane, Shami might have been caught out. Pedri's pulled the trigger, getting the damage down as the Oriana's forced away, does manage to survive, and now the fight could be disastrous as X7 looks to collapse on in. Raider getting a bit of damage down, but only onto tanks. Massive 4-man engage coming through from the rail. Royal standing strong for a second longer, but it's long enough to get the damage dealers in. Raider looking to run through and find priority members. Kevin Mann's still standing, but members of the team are not, as the Tristana is forced to jump away. Bear Tree getting the slap down, while Undead does get a couple of kills, but so does Sid. Massive shield coming up through. Kevin Mann does survive, backs away from the shockwave. It's a 1v3 though. Kevin Mann not confident, even with health bars being so low.
I think there was actually I think there was a misclick from Keverman on the very last auto. Could have killed Sin. Has himself the Quadra, not able to get the Penta in this fight. It is down to the wire. Keverman actually has a decent fight again that time. Keverman is caught out by Shami though.
Shami gonna look to try and get Tristana off the map. Anonymous ulting towards him as well. Keverman diving away, has to go golden. Shami gets the kill just about. But this Tristana exceptionally strong, and X7 just about deal with him this time.
That was far too close for comfort for X7. X7 do get themselves a dragon off the back of that. They do get themselves more gold. They shut down the Tristana yet again. 6 kills for Sin, not to be outdone in this game. Had to kind of sit back and play weak side on the Caitlyn, which is not really what you want to do on that champion throughout the early game, but has come alive in the team fights. Now 12 to 10 in the kills. X7 take themselves a lead in the gold as well.
First time this game, it's ebbed back a little bit now. It's only 600 for Monster Rugby at this very second. Found themselves a little bit of a lead earlier in the fight, but Kevman's so terrifying, and that is an example of X7 being able to deal with him, but really just about. And as you say, one more auto goes Kevman's way. That's a kill, that's a reset on the W, and that's even more damage coming through. Members of X7 were not healthy coming out of that fight. This game definitely on a knife edge now, and Baron up in 30 seconds. We could be set for our next battleground here.
We are. So, important stuff to look towards. Of course, we do have Synapse picking up the nullifying orb. I'm actually trying to remember if that was an inventory beforehand. Feeling wrong. So, a little bit of anti-healing coming through. Got a Thornmail on the Gragas. That's actually really important. Raisins, of course, being the beneficiary of some of those turret plays because of the dominance of Caveman and Raisins' lane, and just how late this game has gone. Raisins is a valuable front line. If you're going to start smacking the Gragas because it's the only person in front of you from Raider, that can be important for that extra healing debuff coming through. Got a fight brewing again. Baron started by Munster.
Going so low, it's taken down so quickly.
Oh, the wall?
The wall with the stolen ultimate from Talia. As members are going to be bopped back into the fight. Raider and Raw trying to get a steal down in. The ace in the hole. Will just go stolen away by Natalia, and the fight kicks off. Kevman's looking through as much damage as possible, but it's just not working. Sid gets so much damage. Kevman is down. The rest of the team goes down too. What can they do? Was it a penta coming through from the Caitlyn? In the end, it wasn't. Raider steals it away from Sin, but it is the ace. It is the Baron, and it could well be the game as X7, 4 members strong, run towards the base.
Oh, scumbag Raider takes away the Penta, but you know what? I don't think anyone's going to be caring about that too much. 2 Quadras on the Caitlyn, 2 games for X7. We're going to lose ourselves one of our UKEL reps as X7 go to the winner's side.
X7 picking themselves up a ticket to the UKEL Summer Split 2021. Monster Rugby Gaming, they're scratching their heads about how they didn't close that one out, but do have another opportunity tomorrow. as they will be forced up against Mythos. And as you said, one of our teams for this season will be leaving us.
Yeah, so congratulations to X7 as you will be joining the cohort of our UK League. And them alongside Resolve Academy, they'll have to reprise their performance they had from the qualifiers against each other several times throughout that split. Speaking of reprising those performances, Mythos, Munster Rugby, we will be losing one of them. It is a grudge match, I suppose, in this lower bracket.
Absolutely, and this means we could have a real shake-up in the UKEL because, of course, Lucid have already punched their ticket to the UKLC. Yeah. We'll be having Demise's main roster down with us next season as opposed to their academy. And now with two new faces in, well, Resolve Academy, kind of a new face. Their academy first time we're going to see them. But also X7, completely new organisation coming on through with completely new players that we have not seen before. It's going to be a very different league next season.
We could do, and of course Viperia right now playing off against Bulldogs for their own promotion opportunity. There is chance, as you're saying, for a huge change in the way that the UKL is going to look in this next season, and honestly, I can't wait for it.
It's going to be really, really fun, and with this X7 roster, I mean, the comeback, the team fights at the end. I said the team fighting is where Munster Rugby can stand up and deliver, but in the last couple of fights, it just didn't look that way.
It didn't look like it, no. I do want to give credit where it's due, of course. I think Heavenman had a great game too. I think there's a lot of things to take away from this game and be proud of them for it. But there wasn't enough, and that's the sad thing, right? Because even though they had this almost miracle run at the end of the split, it wasn't enough to get themselves into playoffs, and they are left now ruining that opportunity because they've had to go into this relegation bracket, and now they're very much in danger in it.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 coin flip against Mythos if they can survive in this league, or if they'll have to come back stronger next time around. But that is all the League of Legends we have for you today on the UKEL stream. We'll wrap it up so you can all migrate over and watch the amazing stream going on, which is on the Square One channel, actually, as you're going to be able to see if Viperia can find themselves a position in the UKLC, or if it will be Bulldog finding their way back into that league. It will be raiding off us. You don't actually have to go anywhere. You can remain lazy. We'll do all the work for you. And of course, it's the amazing Hit Fred and Jamada covering that series. So, you know, a little bit of downgrade from us, but hey, we can't be two places at once. You know how it is. Oh, goodness me. But before we go, Nymera, very quickly, highlight of those two games.
Just how good X7 are at playing towards their strengths. I think that even in drafts where it doesn't look like it's obvious that they should be able to, they somehow manage to pull out time and time again, and they should really be a team to watch come into this next split.
I think they're going to be a very exciting team to watch if they do keep this roster moving forward. And of course, for Munster Rugby, there are moments of goodness in there as well. Kevman in that second game looked really, really good. And whether Mythos can deal with him is the question that will have to be answered tomorrow. But that's all we've got time for today on the UKEL stream. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you at midday tomorrow for even more UK League action.